Hi, Charles SirBookSage here. Welcome to another, I guess, what has been a Wheel of Time Sunday night for me here on my channel. So I'm going to be talking about the Season 2 finale. And give me just a moment. I have my stream open in another tab, and I hear myself talking to myself, so I got to stop that. Okay, that is done. That is weird. Anyway, so Season 2 finale of The Wheel of Time, Episode 8, What Was Meant to Be is the name of the episode. And I guess an appropriately entitled episode because, you know, there's the obvious joke, what was meant to be was not a good TV show adaptation, apparently. So, while Season 2 has been a better season than Season 1 overall, I think that's an easy thing to say. I found this season finale just to be really bad overall. Again, a few good moments, but the ending was so just unrecognizable again from the finale of the second book. Now, the season finale of Season 1 was really bad, quite frankly. I mean, maybe, again, to people who've never read these books, maybe it was fine. I don't know. But it is so far away from how everything went down at the Eye of the World in the book. But they had at least the whole pandemic and the disruption of production schedules, and all that got in their way and really curtailed what they might have wanted to try to do for that finale. So I gave them a lot of leeway and a pretty big pass for that. But for Season 2, everything has been leveled up production-wise this second season. And you've seen all season long. The sets are better, the costuming is better, even the writing is generally better, all across the board. So I was hoping that the season finale would be better. And again, this might have been a great season finale for people who don't know the actual story in the books. But for me, someone who's read these books, and especially read these early books many, many times, this was just very, very disappointing overall. So I kind of want to go over what happened in this finale. And I will start with, I'll go through and I'll point out the things that I thought were done very well. Because there were moments that I thought were really well done, things that I liked in this final episode, but for the most part, the finale part, how it culminates, was just god-awful. And once again, you could have taken Rand out of this entire season and you really wouldn't have a different story. Just like for Season 1, he didn't really do much of anything that first season, outside of those 10 seconds where he stands up at the Eye of the World holding the Sangreal and beams a ray of light at Ishamael. Same thing here in this Season 2 finale. Rand is mostly useless. But we'll get there. Let's just start at the beginning of this episode. We get a cold open, and a proper cold open again, just like last week. It was an actual legitimate cold open, not just a scene before the opening credits. And like last season, the season finale opens up with a cold open of Lews Therin. And I really love the actor they have playing Lews Therin in the scene we saw opening up the finale of Season 1 and here again in Season 2. This is still Lews Therin before he's been driven mad by the Dark One corrupting Saidin. So we haven't seen this actor get to play that Lews Therin yet. So, but hopefully as we get deeper into more seasons, the sort of mad, crazy version of Lews Therin will start creeping in. And we'll get to see what kind of fun this actor has with that aspect of Lews Therin that comes later. But for now, it opens up. Lews Therin is in the room. There's male Aes Sedai with him. And they've captured Ishamael. And Ishamael is on his knees, and he's basically being shielded by this group of Aes Sedai. And Ishamael is trying to convince Lews Therin still to join him. Because in this TV show, Ishamael wants everything to end. He doesn't want the Dark One to win. He wants life to end and there just be eternal nothingness. Because he's tired of the wheel spitting him back out again in another turn around where everyone kind of gets reincarnated and replays their roles. And free to make different choices each time, sure, but they're basically put through the same sort of series of events, and just how they decide to play things determines that go-round. So Ishamael in the TV show, at least, is looking to break the wheel, end this repeating cycle of this continual rebirth, living, dying, rebirth, living, dying, over and over and over and over again, the way it's presented as they've been doing. Like, because from the TV show's perspective, the dragon and Ishamael and all this stuff is played out an infinite amount of times as the wheel turns around over and over again. And he just wants it all to stop. So, but the Lews Therin in this TV show, however, he's decided that he's going to imprison the Dark One and imprison all of the Forsaken. So that, yes, the wheel will keep turning. Yes, people will, the wheel will spit them back out into another turn around the wheel where they live again. But the Forsaken won't. They'll be locked away in these Quendiar discs for eternity. So Ishamael will kind of get the nothingness that he wants, but not really, because he'll be a prisoner, and he'll be able to kind of see and know, in a sense, what's happening over and over and over and over again. He just won't be an active player in it anymore. And so Lews is basically apologizing that this is what he has to do to his friend, because the TV show presents Lews Therin, Telamon, Ishamael, and Lanfear in particular, all three as inseparable best friends before the whole War of Power happened and the Dark One showed up, and some of them, like Ishamael and Lanfear, got corrupted by the Dark. But again, really nice cold opening scene. I think they're doing a really good job with this sort of portrayal they're doing of this kind of relationship between these people. And the actors I like. They're very well cast characters for the most part. I am not the biggest fan of Ishamael being so less terrifying, I guess, in the TV show than he is in the books. Because, Ishamael is very forceful in the books and very adamant and very single-minded and focused. And he's driven by this obsession to dominate. So this, is it Faraz, I think the actor is? He's, again, playing a very different interpretation of Ishamael in this TV show. It works for what the TV show is doing. So, but, it is a very different feeling to the character from the way he's presented in the books. But this is our opening scene, and he's basically imprisoned. And one thing the TV show is also doing, this is another change to the lore and world building and lore of the TV show. Very little of the lore of these books is still intact in the show. A lot of it's been changed. These Quendiar seals in the books, they are the seals on the Dark One's prison. And as each Quendiar disc is broken, the overall prison surrounding the Dark One keeps getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And some of the Forsaken were sort of buried into that prison, but close enough to its sort of surface that over time they've been able to start squeezing out and getting out. But here in the TV show, the Quendiar discs the Forsaken are trapped, each one in a disc. So as you break a Quendiar disc, it frees whatever Forsaken was imprisoned inside of it. So it's a very different, it's a change to the lore and how it works. So I'm assuming they're still going to circle these things around as also being seals in the Dark One's prison. But they seem to have added, I don't recall them being having to do with specific Forsaken the way the TV show is doing it. But again, that's just one of the many, many lore changes we have in this book. In this TV show compared to the way it is in the books. But a really good opening, cold open. And we get our really just awesome, absolutely fantastic title sequence. Where the hell was this title sequence this whole season? How do you have, this was probably the best interpretation of their Wheel of Time opening title sequence that the show has had. And why in the world would you only have it here in your final episode of this season? How do you not have this at the beginning of every episode? It's just a bizarre, just aesthetic choice. It's like we got that just a little spinny thing, and then we got a little more thing, and now we've had this much more elaborate and really, really well done sort of opening title. I thought this was and what's interesting and kind of funny and ironic is the opening title sequence is more accurate to how the sort of wheel and the pattern works than all the dialogue when the characters talk about it. Because, the Amarylline Seat last episode was talking about it as like a water wheel, which is not relevant in any way. So it's kind of weird that they can't get the dialogue when it comes to the pattern correct, but they can, through graphics, show you the correct interpretation of the pattern and how it weaves and looms and threads and all that stuff. So, again, this is one of those weird things about this TV show where, hey, look at this thing that I can do correct. Oh, and hey, now look at me doing that same thing completely wrong. It's like this kind of disparity in how they handle some of these elements to this story shouldn't be this like glaringly like out of sync with each other the way they are on this TV show sometimes. But so now we get into the rest of the episode. And this is another episode where you bounce around, sometimes very quickly, between people. Some of that is been going on all season, and some of that I think they're trying to like ramp up the sort of pace and pressure for the finale. And sometimes it works well, and sometimes it doesn't work, and just gets a little, like, can I have more than 20 seconds with these two before you're on to something else, please? But, that's just something that's been pretty much throughout all of season 2. Very quick scenes a lot of times. But we open up with our White Cloaks. Now, this is Jeffrem Bornhold, who we had in season 1 very briefly. He's the white-haired, commander of the White Cloaks. And he's there, and he's got his White Cloak army. Valda is there. Valda's the one who tortured Perrin and Egwene in season 1. And Joffrem's son Dane, who we met a couple of episodes ago. The episode where Perrin frees Avienda from the cage instead of it being Gaul and being freed from the cage. And you realize that they're close to Falm. They've basically decided, Jeffrem Bornhold has decided he's going to be attacking Falm and basically dealing with the Seanchan. And for some strange reason, there's this what's a clearly unnatural fog that's sort of developing near. You can see it in the distance, sort of towards where the White Cloaks need to go. There's like sort of a pass that they need to travel through to get onto, I guess, the plain where Falm, the city of Falm, is by the ocean, or by an oasis, or whatever it says on the TV show. And it's just a quick scene. It's just, its purpose is, hey, remember this guy from season 1? Well, this is who he is again. Remember Dane you met? This is his son. Remember Valda? You don't like these people. Okay, now let's go somewhere else. It's just a reintroducing them that they're part of this story. Because they've been largely, outside of that one episode, they've been largely absent this season. But then we pick up where we left off last season with Lanfear leading Moiraine, Lan, and Rand through the ways. She had taken them into the Waygate, into the ways in Carrion, which didn't happen in the books, of course. And they're traveling through the ways, and they arrive at another Waygate, and Lanfear basically tells Moiraine and Lan and them that this is the Waygate to Falm. So she just, with a flick, she opens the Waygate, and then with the one power, she just flings Moiraine and Rand out, and then shuts the Waygate, leaving her and Rand inside the ways. And Moiraine and Lan are on some beach somewhere. And Rand is alone with Lanfear, and Machin Shin comes, because whenever you channel in the ways, Machin Shin will come and attack. But we see, I think this might be the first overt time they've showed what's known as traveling on this TV show. I don't know that they've actually shown that before. So, because Rand is kind of petrified of Machin Shin coming and ripping him to shreds, but Lanfear's not concerned, and she basically says, just, she takes a hold of him and she says, close your eyes, and then they disappear. So we have, because the Forsaken can do this thing called traveling, where they can just kind of step through. They can just like open the little thing and step through it and get to wherever they want to be. They don't need the ways to move around on their own. So she just pretty much takes Rand right to Falm like that, which then is a reminder that this is what she must have done with Matt in the previous episode. When Matt was walking to the Fort Gate, gets knocked out, and then he wakes up and he's in Falm with Lanfear. So they implied it last episode. Now they actually showed Lanfear doing it this episode. But that's it. Very quick. Just getting, basically touching base with everybody to start this episode. And then, because we then go to Perrin and the Aiel. Perrin with Aviendha, Bane, and Shiad. And, come on. I have my notes on the side here. So we have Perrin and the Aiel. They're approaching Falm. They can see the city, the walls of the city there, and the waters to their right. And then this sort of unnatural fog is kind of rolling in. And like the Aviendha mentions it, that's not supposed to be there. And then they're talking about, basically death, because they know there's going to be fighting in the city when they go in. So Perrin stops and tells Hopper to stay. Like, he doesn't want Hopper coming in. He doesn't want Hopper in danger. So Hopper stays behind while the Perrin and the Aiel go into the city. And again, just reintroducing them, letting you know that, okay, they're arriving at Falm. And then we have Ishamael. And Ishamael's on a balcony overlooking, like, the courtyard in, like, the center of the town. And then he kind of walks back into his room, and Lanfear's there. And she tells him that she's brought Rand. And Ishamael's not happy, because Ishamael's game plan seems to be to just slowly wear Rand down over time to where he can convince Rand to join him and help him break the wheel. Basically, he's trying to convince Rand. He wants to convince Rand what he failed to convince Lews Therin to do. And he feels that Lanfear is moving too soon. Because this is what the Forsaken do. They go out of their way to screw each other over and undermine each other's plans. It's just their nature, because they're, kind of evil at this point. And evil tends to do evil things, even to other evil things. So it's the least surprising thing that none of them can trust each other. And we see that he's got 6 Quendiar discs in his room. And you learn that he has the 6 other Forsaken. And he's planning on breaking these seals and freeing all the remaining Forsaken. Because the speculation for a while has been that there's only going to be 8. I always forget. There's only going to be 8. To turn that stupid thing off. There's only going to be 8 Forsaken in this TV show. I'm not sure how many are in the books, maybe 12 or more. So it's just a matter of, okay, which 8 is it specifically going to be? We know, obviously, Ishamael, we know Lanfear, and we get introduced to our 3rd Forsaken in the the final scene of this season. And I'll get to that, because that was one of the things I actually really liked in this episode. So I'm curious to see who the other 5 are going to be. And I suspect some of the attributes of the ones we're not getting are just going to be kind of rolled up and divided between the 8 Forsaken we do get. Because Lanfear does seem to have some, is it Sermahaj? Things about her. Like, she seems to be Lanfear, but with a little Sermahaj kind of mixed in. Particularly the way she dresses. Because, in the books, Lanfear is always in white. That's kind of Lanfear's thing. And I think she's worn white once this season. Which is just, okay. There's a very deliberate, specific aesthetic change to Lanfear in this TV show. To not have her wearing the white she's always wearing. But it's just one of those things this show's doing because it can. Because they feel like it. I haven't seen an in-story reason for why they've just taken that look away from her, but who knows? Maybe they'll get around to actually, or maybe they just don't care, which is probably the more accurate thing. So Ishamael realizes that Lanfear's kind of screwing him over, and he's not happy. But then we're back to the White Cloaks, and we get our first absolutely, utterly, incredibly stupid moment in this season, in this episode. there's two Shan guards standing outside of the gates of the city. The gates are open behind them, and they see this fog rolling in, and they're kind of looking at it, and you can look and you see like these, it's like little kids dressed like white cloaks, carrying like, was it an urn with this sort of incense, like burning incense. So apparently there's like a couple of kids strolling slowly, walking in front of white cloak cavalry that are somehow producing this giant fog. Now, how? Like, how is this happening? Like, what is this? Where did this come from? And how are they doing this? Any use of any kind of magic of any kind, be it using the one power or any other weird sort of thing, like Perrin with his wolf stuff with his eyes, Min with her abilities, that is stone cold, straight up evil in the eyes of the White Cloaks. They would have no tolerance, like, for anything they view as evil. So there's no way in hell they would be using three, like, little kids to conjure up a magic fog. Like, what? I'm assuming somebody in this production watched the Excalibur movie. Is it the John Borman Excalibur? Where what's her name, creates the mist, the fog, thinking she's helping her son or whatever he is. And it turns out it's hurting him and helping Arthur. So I'm wondering if somebody in this production just watched that movie and said, hey, remember that fog from Excalibur? Let's have the White Cloaks do that. Because it was just the dumbest thing and completely contradicts the White Cloaks. Like, no, they're not going to have magical fog that they can produce because that would be evil to the White Cloaks. And the White Cloaks present themselves as this, like, this sort of absolute good. Or like, so good they'll do horrific things in the name of goodness kind of thing. So, yeah, it was just farcical. But they use it to just storm into the city. They kill the two guards and ride in with all their horses into the city to just basically go to war against the Shan. No battle plan, no tactics. No one's been scouting ahead of time. No one has a map of the alleys and the streets. It's just, let's charge in and just wreak havoc. So, okay, whatever. But just tactics are not a thing in this TV show for the most part. And yes, the Shan do have this sort of hubris about them where the moment you, like, bend your knee to them, like, they kind of dismiss you from their mind and they don't think about you anymore. You're just a servant and you're not a threat. Because for some reason, they just believe that if you swear an oath, an oath is bounding, you'll just obey me forever. Nothing to worry about here. So this is apparently why the Shan only have two guards guarding this entire city, where their leadership who's come to this continent just kind of hangs out. And so, yeah, they battle in. And then we cutting away again because we can only spend like 30 to 45 seconds with anyone at any given time. We have back to finally Nynaeve and Elaine. Now, Nynaeve had collared Sita, one of the Suldam, and they've now turned her sort of into a Damane. And Nynaeve has her bracelet on, and she's pretty much, getting ready to interrogate Sita. So, but again, it's just a very quick 20 seconds, just reminding you that this is where we left off, this is the situation here, and then we're off to Egwene. And this has been one of the frustrating things about this season, is we get so little time with these characters in some episodes, where, it's like, I didn't need to see Nynaeve and Elaine for 20 seconds, then to just come back to them a minute and a half later and get a proper scene. Just wait to do the scene. This bouncing just so fast. If you don't know how to do it, it just makes everything disjointed and doesn't work and throws off the whole flow to the story. And we get a bit too much of that in this episode, as we have throughout a lot of the season. But we're back to Egwene, finally. Now, Egwene is in her room. Rena has painted up her face like dark blue or something like that, because they're getting ready to go into battle. The Damani are going to be gathered. Their Suldam are all taking their Damani up to the top of this tower, and they're going to use them as weapons to attack, like the White Cloaks and whoever else is, like, attacking them. And Egwene wants no part of it. And she's like, done. She's like, I've had enough of this, and I'm not doing this anymore. So Rena loses it and grabs Gwen, threatens to cut her tongue out. She's got a blade, like a knife, in her mouth. And then she changes her mind and turns Gwen around and cuts Gwen's braid off, throws it down and steps on it. And basically commands her, let's go, kind of thing. And that's just, again, bringing us back and reintroducing the dynamic between them in this episode. And then we're back over to Ishamael. And we have Padan Fain. Now, I really like the actor who's playing Padan Fain. I wish they would have let him actually play the character Padan Fain, because this Padan Fain in the TV show it's a completely different character, like not even remotely the same character. Now, for those of you who haven't read the books, think a demented, psychotic, like demon-infested Gollum. Okay, like take Gollum and put him on steroids and have him be possessed by like the devil that possessed in the Exorcist film. Like have him just be a straight up like deranged psychopath. Like that's become the host for this sort of spirit that's so evil. Like even the dark friends and the dark, like even the Fades are terrified of him in the book because no one knows what the hell he is and what to make of him. And again, he's someone who took a Fade and nailed him to a door in a town. And this Padan Fain, you can't picture this Padan Fain in this TV show doing that to a Fade. Because this Padan Fain's just like, he's just a guy you'd meet at a pub and have a beer with and just have an interesting chat with. So it's just such a bizarre, like, complete change from the book. And here, Padan Fain is just basically like Ishamael's helper. And Ishamael tells him, it's like, Lanfear's betrayed us. And Ishamael is starting to realize that, okay, she's moved too quick. She's screwed up my plans. I'm not going to have enough time to convince Rand to join me and destroy the wheel for good. So I might just have to just take Rand off the board myself and just wait for the next turn of the wheel. Like I've got all the time in the world. So maybe I'll just wait for the next go around and hope for better success. So that's kind of where Ishamael's getting his head at here. Again, which is an interesting take on the Ishamael for this show. Again, some changes that I generally like, some changes I dislike. I don't dislike this sort of change that they're doing with Ishamael here. And I can't remember if Ishamael ultimately wants everything to end in the books. I'd have to go back and look at some things later to see. But for this TV show, that's straight up what he wants. He just wants everything to end so he never has to be reborn again. But so he's starting to realize that he just may have lost his opportunity. So he tells, so Padan Fain's like, hey, you want me to kill Rand for you? I'll kill Rand. And Ishamael's like, no, I already know who's going to kill him. So, and he tells Padan Fain to basically take the dagger and give it to Matt. Because he knows that Matt is going to end up stabbing Rand with the dagger. Because Min had her vision and everything. And Ishamael knows about that in this TV show. So now, again, the one absolute thing that Padan Fain in the books would never, under any circumstances, do is voluntarily hand the dagger over to someone. The only reason Turok gets that dagger is because it got locked in the chest that holds the Horn of Valir. And Padan Fain can't open that chest. So he has to give the chest to Tyler Turok in the book. So because Turok can open the chest, so the Shadow Logos dagger can be taken out of that chest, and then Padan Fain can then figure out how to get his hands back on it. So that's it. But if that dagger isn't in something that Padan Fain can't open, Padan Fain will basically die or kill everybody around him to prevent giving the dagger. But again, it's totally different in this TV show. So Padan Fain is going to be doing that, again, which is something he would never do, ever in the books. So this is one of those cases where we're so far away from who some of these people are in the books. It's very frustrating. And I wonder how some of these actors think if they go out for this role and they get it and they read the books and, man, this is great stuff. I can't wait to do this on screen. And then they get their script and they must look at it and so, where's my character? Where's Padam Fane? This is a completely different person. This is not the character in these books that I thought I was going to get to play. So like Ingtar. Imagine the actor landing the role of Ingtar, thinking you're going to get Book 2 Ingtar, and you get this Season 2 script. Because we'll get to what this TV show did to Ingtar in a minute. But, Rand has arrived at the city, and he's kind of walked in. He's kind of over on the side, because everything seems to happen around this one sort of big open courtyard in the center of this town. Like Turok's home is there, the Damane building is there. Everything happens in and around this one place, which for set purposes and design and cost makes sense. You just have this one central location and just everything you need to happen inside the city mostly happens there, outside of a couple of moments. Hold on. Let's see if I remember which way this goes. Now I remember to put this back on here. Okay. Anyway, so Rand is there. He arrives and he sees Egwene among the group of Damane all being kind of marched up over to this tower. And they're going to go up on top of the tower. So Rand gets his confirmation again visually now that, yes, Egwene is still here. She's still captured. But again, it's just a quick moment. And then we're all finally to Mat. And then Padam Fane comes in to where Mat is. And Padam Fane puts the dagger down, tells Mat's going to take the dagger. And Mat's like absolutely insisting that he won't. And you can see the temptation is there with Mat. Because he was attached to this dagger for so long. Now, this is seems to be another change from the book. In the book, he's still bound to that dagger. So Mat has to have get the dagger back. And that's what drives Mat throughout the book, to be on this whole mission in the first place. And when Mat actually is able to seize the dagger and the horn in Turok's room in the book, he runs over, picks up both of them, and he's like triumphant with the dagger, like raising it up, like I got it, like super happy, super relieved. Because, he's been dying basically without it, because the Aes Sedai in the books haven't been able to break its hold on him at this point in the story yet. Unlike the TV show, where it seems to be that Moiraine must have done that in the first season. But he's left alone, and Padam Fane leaves and leaves him alone with the dagger, knowing that you're going to give in. Eventually, you'll give in, and you won't be able to help yourself. And on we are to Moiraine and Lan. Now, we finally get, for the first time all season, we finally get a good Moiraine and Lan scene. Okay, I met. Let's see, I had my suspicions that the writers have only read at most 5 books in, and therefore do not know the big moments from later books they're supposed to be setting up. Similarly with the cast. Now, that would not surprise me at all, because there are things that they should be setting up here, that they can be setting up here, that they're really not doing. And there's some very, very drastic character changes in terms of what some characters do, Egwene in particular in this episode, that makes her, this TV Egwene, a very, very different kind of person from Book Egwene, at least at this point in the story. So I would hope that they would sit down and read the whole series before they would start plotting out a TV series adaptation of it. But like you said, they don't seem to know where some of the story's going based upon some of the choices they've been making. But like I said, we have Moiraine and Lan. They were dropped off on like the speech by Lanfear, and they're making their way following the coastline, knowing they're going to eventually come to Falme. They can't be too far away from it. And Lan basically wants the water bond back. Moiraine's had her powers restored, and he wants the bond back. And they kind of have this back and forth conversation. And we have a very interesting moment here. And because Lan is like, basically, I've come to accept that I'm not your equal. So I understand that, and I get it. But, there's nothing you can say that can hurt me anymore. So just let me be who I'm supposed to be for you and give me the bond back. And we get a nice moment from Moiraine where, and this is what she says here in the TV show, the only reason I was able to say that you're not my equal is that I've known one thing to be true since the first day we met. You have always been my better. And great, just finally a nice, great character moment between Moiraine and Lan. A moment of where the dialogue actually makes me feel an emotion, which is something that's rare in this TV show, because they've done a really bad job. They've taken little moments, like a line of dialogue, like Nynaeve has a line of dialogue in an upcoming scene straight out of the book. They don't have Nynaeve say the rest of what she says in that scene, but just one sentence, they have her say that at least, so you can go, what's his name? Leo gif there, meme. But I liked this quote from Moiraine here. It was a great, summation, circling back and, rounding up their sort of stupid plot, daytime soap opera plot they've had this whole season. It's nice for that to just be put to bed. And then Moiraine restores the bond. And this was an interesting scene, because is she meant to be rebonding Lan here, or is she just basically unmasking the bond so he can feel it again? The show kind of presents it as though she's actually rebonding him all over again. But and it's very interesting the way they present it, because it is it's presented as very intimate, not sexually intimate or anything, but just these are two people who do intimately know each other, because they've been linked psychically and magically now for decades. So, but I'm curious. I hope we get to see them showing us another water being bonded at some point. Only because, no spoilers here, but let's just say a certain bonding scene is going to take place later in this story. And I would hope that we get to see a different bond first, so they show that this isn't the only sort of way it goes when you're bonding someone, that this is very specific to these two people. But we'll see. Hi, Cindy. The Moiraine Lan scene was just too long. They could have used the time for story building instead of just circling them. Yes. Now, yes, this was one of the longer scenes in the episode. And that's, I think, because in the TV show, Moiraine is the main character of the TV show, even though she's not present in the second book all that much. She's an important supporting character in the books, but in the TV show, Moiraine, you get the impression, is really the show's main character more than anything else. So she gets the screen time. But yes, it was a bit drawn out. They could have used some of that time to accomplish other really important things for the story. Because some things had so little room to breathe at all. Lan and Moiraine got to stretch their legs and, work out the kinks, and, the camera's circling around them and all this stuff. And, and then Nynaeve and Elaine, it's okay, we got to do this thing. And okay, we're gone. We're back to somebody else. That's all you get. 15 seconds and you're done until later. So yeah, I wish they could balance things out a bit better. So, Matt, I liked witnessing the rebonding, but also found it a little strange that it was necessary if Moiraine had only been shielded. In the books, the bond is only severed by death. Yes, and that's what struck me as odd, too, because this TV show clearly seems to be presenting her as rebonding him all over again, rather than just unmasking it, which is how it should be, because pretty much death is one of the main things that will sever a bond, a water bond. A bond can be passed from one Aes Sedai to another, but yeah, this should just be her just flipping a switch back on, and he would just feel the bond again. So, but they wanted their big, dramatic, scene between the two of them to wrap up the whole, just the dumbness of their plot that they had all season. So, and we're not done with them on the beach, by the way. We're going to come back to them and get another whole scene of them on the beach. They're pretty much on the beach just about this whole episode. So. But we're now back to Perrin. He's with Avienda, Bane, and Shia. They're in the city, and they're kind of, everything's mayhem because White Cloaks are fighting Shan Chan, and they're kind of just feeling their way around, just trying to figure out where to go. And they run into Loyal and Ingtar and Masima. They all kind of run into each other and reunite, and they all meet the Aiel. But again, it's just a quick thing. I think Loyal has the horn here at this point. So just Ingtar and Loyal and Masima apparently got the horn off screen. So they've already got it at this point because they knew where it was and they were going to go grab it. So we didn't get any of that we had in the books with the horn actually being taken back by Matt in particular. So, sorry, allergies. But Ingtar's purpose is, okay, we've got the horn. Let's get out of here. We got to get this back to Valdara. That's my mission. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about the war, the Shan Chan, the White Cloaks. This is my purpose. And Loyal's like, we have to rescue a Gwen. I'm not leaving a Gwen, And so it's basically this tug of wills between Ingtar and Masima on one hand and Loyal on the other hand. And Loyal gives this sort of speech, we're the heroes of this turning of the wheel, and it's time we start acting like heroes. It's meant to be like one of those, big speeches that, you feel like some shows or movies sometimes might have. It's cute, but it's basically what they came up with to just end that debate that they're rescuing Egwene. And again, Loyal is another one. The Ogier has been just so wasted on this TV show. He's another actor I feel really bad for, that he's been given so little of what this character does in the books here in this TV show. So, it's a shame because, again, we're seeing actors who could do really good jobs with some of these characters, and they're just given so little to work with in terms of the script. All right, so, but, we don't get to linger with them. They don't get the nice, long, lingering camera moments and everything. We're off back to Egwene now. Then we have the Damani and the Sul'dam. They're up on the top of this tower, and they're basically gearing up to start, like, flinging fire bolts and lightning bolts or whatever at their enemies. And Egwene sees Valda, the White Cloak who tortured her in season 1. And she just starts sucking in the one power and then just sends fire bolts like at Valda and the White Cloak's there. She's basically trying to kill Valda. And Valda gets like attacked and knocked down and injured by the firebolt, but gets up and they're running away and stuff. And we cut away from them because, again, we're back to everyone getting 15, 20 seconds. And then here we get to the second absolute, just the dumbest, most utterly farcical. I laughed out loud at how just stupid this was. We learn why this TV show has not spent one single moment of 2 seasons now having Rand al'Thor actually learn how to use a sword. Because High Lord Turok is there. He's armored up. He's got his guards around him, and they're coming out into the courtyard. They're ready to join in the action. And here comes Rand strolling up. And Turok sees he's got his heron-marked blade. He's like, okay, let's see what it takes to be a blade master on this side of the world. Takes his own heron-marked blade out, ready to battle Rand. And Rand just channels one power and kills them all on the spot. And I just started laughing. It's like this is a comedy show at this point. All of that entire setup for this guy. Now Turok and Rand have a pretty knockdown, drag out sword fight in the books, and it's everything Rand has in him to not get killed by Turok, because Turok is the far superior swordsman in the books. And Rand, yes, Rand does use this sort of the flame and the void, something that is a big part of who Rand's sort of meditative process that he learns from his father that is non-existent in this TV show. And it's only by going, like, doing the flame and the void and centering and focusing himself and kind of almost tuning himself into the one power in a sense, where he's able to just up his movements, quicken his movements just enough to, instead of being worse than Turok, he's slightly faster than Turok and is able to win. But here in the show, it's like, all right, let's do this, and dead. Like, again, this is another actor who probably got this part, went and read book 2, he has this really cool sword fight, and then gets the script and reads it and goes, I'm going to fire my agent and get myself a proper agent. Because what is this nonsense in this TV show? And it's just, I was just laughing hysterically at how absurd it was. Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark moment. It's just, yes, like the guy with the big swords and him. He just takes the gun out and shoots the guy. Yeah, same thing. It's like, what a waste. Imagine setting this guy up. And again, you heard me, if you watched all these live streams, every episode, I'm like, when is Rand going to learn how to use the sword? Because he's supposed to be battling Turok in the season finale. And yeah, no. So at this point, I have no expectation that Rand's ever going to learn how to use the sword in this TV show. So anyway, and then we get this farce followed up with another just character assassination moment. We have the death of my man Ingtar. Now, Ingtar is the Shanaran captain who's been sort of leading this expedition to try to recover the horn. And Ingtar has been just obsessed. And you see in the book that there's something driving Ingtar, some purpose, something burning in him. And there's something bothering him. And you can see that there's just these moments where something's not quite right. And you're waiting to learn, okay, what's happening with this guy? And in the book, again, it's Rand, Mat, Perrin, Ingtar, Uno, Masema, and the other Shinarans. They're all together here. I can't remember if Loyal is with them at this point. I think Loyal is there. Actually, it is Rand, Mat, Perrin, Ingtar, and Huron. Huron's the sniffer tracker who's not in this TV show. It's just those 5 were sent into the city Falm by Varen Sedai. All the rest of them, Uno and Loyal and all the rest, herself included, stayed back. She says, just these 5 go in. So it's those 5 in this alley. And Uno's, Ingtar starts talking to Rand. Because they enter this really narrow alley. The other 3 move down to the other end, Mat, Perrin, and Huron. And Ingtar kind of hangs at the front of the alley. And Rand stays with them. And Ingtar starts talking in the book about how, and he said how one man can hold off 50 here, and which is a line Ingtar says in the show. And when he says that, I'm like, oh, here it comes. We're going to get our Ingtar reveal. This man's we're going to learn what's been driving him. We're going to learn, what his secret is, and he's going to have this sort of redemptive death. Because none of that is in this TV show. And we learn why Ingtar has been mostly non-existent in this television show as well. Because Ingtar gets himself killed in a matter of seconds. No, he just basically gets got because he's a dumbass in this TV show. Now, in the books, he's talking to Rand, and Rand is kind of listening. But then Rand starts realizing that Ingtar's confessing. And you learn that Ingtar's a dark friend, that Ingtar was just frustrated with how everything was happening. It's like that his people were standing alone, facing the Blight, fighting Trollocs, fighting Fades, and with the whole rest of the continent just thinking it's all fairy tales. And he ends up giving into despair and becoming a dark friend. And he's the one who lets in the person, because in the books, the Amlency comes to Fal Dara at the beginning, and that's where she meets with Rand at the beginning of book 2. And somebody shoots an arrow, and you're not sure, is it meant for the Amyrlin? Was it meant for Rand? And this is Ingtar confessing he let that person in. He didn't know they were going to do that. And as he's been riding with Rand, he's been like kind of realizing the mistake he made. So he's been driven by this singular thought. If I can reclaim the horn and blow the horn, I can find redemption and find my way back to the light and not be a traitor and all this stuff. So he's just fighting against that despair. And he realizes, and he says something to Rand in the books like, there comes a time when a man knows it's time to, like, what's known as sheathe the sword. It's just like move or you might kill yourself to kill your enemy kind of thing. And this is, or metaphorically, Ingtar recognizes that it's time for him to basically accept his death. And that his one last redemptive moment is to save the life of his friends. And, you know, like, hey, I'm kind of tearing up talking about it here. It's a poignant scene in the book, in the second book. And a scene that's such a payoff because Ingtar's been there in this book, a really important supporting character all the way through. And this is just such a kind of shocking moment. And it's a super important lesson for Rand to learn here, that this is a man he's been traveling with. Every day he's entrusted his life in this man's hands. And this man has been a dark friend the whole time. And it's kind of a realization that there are so many different reasons for why someone would become a dark friend. That there doesn't mean that they're an evil person. Sometimes it's just they get caught at the worst moment of their lives and they give in to despair. And then they spend the rest of their existence regretting that moment and with not knowing of a way to get out. And some dark friends are stone cold straight up. They'll just slice your throat for a copper or something, for a coin. They don't care. But it's a really, really important lesson for Rand that he learns here in the books about how little you really know about a person you have right next to you day in and day out. And it's a poignant moment and a poignant death for Ingtar. And you hear, as they move away down out of that alley, you hear basically Ingtar like crying out, shouting out Shinar and all this stuff. And you realize he's dying out there. And this TV took all that away from this man. Nope. In the TV show, Ingtar was just a dumbass who got himself killed. And yeah, what a okay. This might sound like a out of the left blue tangent, but there is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays is Henry V, and I'm very partial to the Kenneth Branagh film adaptation. There's a scene late in the movie where Harry comes back to, like, there's a break, a lull, and he comes back and he discovers that some of the French had snuck around the back and murdered these kids that are basically stay with the luggage and baggage. They're just basically helpers for these knights and soldiers, like at night and stuff. They're pages. They're non-combatants. And it's a horrible war crime to kill them. And that's what some of the French did in the story out of spite. And this is something you see when there's movies basically about medieval times between the English and the French. If it's an English POV film, the French are villainous. And if it's a French POV film, the English are villainous. You know, you see this flipped on its head in the Joan of Arc film. That, what's her name? Her name just went right out of my head. You know, Multipass, her. That she plays Joan of Arc in that movie. Great Dennis. Yeah, whatever. My mind is just not on those stuff right now. But anyway, but when he discovers that these kids have been just murdered, like stone cold murdered in an act like a war crime by the French, he's like, in a moment of frustration and rage, he shouts out, like, I was not angry till I came to France. And that was the line. I heard Kenneth Branagh shouting that line from that movie, from that play, as I'm watching Ingtar just have this actor have this Ingtar's character just flushed away, flushed down the toilet. Hit the whole point of him just thrown away by this TV show. And it's one of the most frustrating moments of this entire series, is seeing what they did to his character. And I assume you'll have things to say about the sword fight against the Shamiel. Oh, yeah, we're going to get to there, Matt. We are going to get to that. What was meant to be was not what we got in this TV show. So where were we? Oh, yeah. So I don't know why you even bother having Ingtar in the story if that's what you did to him. But anyway, we're back to Moiraine and Lan. So back to the two of them at the beach. And they're playing, this scene is playing again into this sort of Luce, Theron, Telamon, Ishamael, and Lanfear were inseparable. All like three best friends. Before the war for power came, the Dark One came, and Ishamael and Lanfear got corrupted and fell. That these three were inseparable. And Lan makes a remark just like these kids. So I don't know if the show is kind of hinting that some of the Emmonsfield kids are going to turn to the dark side in this TV show. I wouldn't put anything past what the show will do. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if one or two of these characters, they just take their entire plot and just throw it in the garbage and just make up a story for them. But I hope not. I hope not. So far, they generally seem to be, even though the one they've been setting up to take a turn to the bad side was Matt, but that seems to have been just a kind of a fake out based upon this episode, which is kind of what I hoped they were doing. But who knows? That remark implies that they might still turn one of these kids bad, which would turn them into a completely different character from who they are in the books. But they're just kind of talking about this, and as they're walking along, and they finally see the Falma, like not too far away. They're realizing, okay, they're almost at the city. And it's basically, that scene was just to bring you back to remember that they're still walking to Falm. And oh, here's this little reminder of the relationship that some of these people had in the past. And then we get Lanfear in the market, because Bail Doman is apparently out shopping. I mean, a war is broken out in the city, or all around Bail Doman, and Bail Doman is doing what Bail Doman does. He's a haggler. He's probably saying, I could probably get a really good price for stuff if they're trying to sell things before their market burns down or something. Who knows? But I guess I wouldn't be... In the books, Bail Doman is there. He's on board his ship in the harbor, trying to figure out how the hell to get out of this harbor without getting sunk by the Damane on the Shanchan ships. And Lanfear shows up and basically hires him. She tells him to have your ship ready, and she's going to come to his ship later with 6 Quendiar seals, discs. And these are priceless. And she wants Bail Doman to take them and dump them into the deepest part of the ocean, which, of course, to him is like, why would you want me to throw away priceless things? But she just tells him, it's like, no, be ready for when I come. And in the book, it's Nynaeve and Elaine and Min who go and visit Bail Doman on his ship. And Nynaeve, who basically hires Bail Doman to stay and wait. She's like, no matter what happens, you stay here and you wait for us. We're going to get one of our friends, and then we're going to come back. And when we come back, we'll help you. We'll deal with the Damane to get your ship out of here. So it's just they've kind of flipped it on their head. But this is all we saw Bail Doman in this episode. He was just there as kind of a rubbing it in the book reader's face. Hi, ha ha ha, you remember Bail Doman? Yeah, remember, what he's supposed to be doing here? Nah, we just reminded you we could use him, but now we're not doing that. So, at least the actor got another scene. So I'm happy for him. I'm hoping, he gets to be, again, more Bail Doman that we get in the books. Because Bail Doman is a character who's going to keep popping up in this story. So hopefully he gets to do in the show some of the things he gets to do in the books. But we'll see. he might just be one of those characters they just have pop up occasionally to just do whatever they need to be done, and not necessarily why he's there in the books. Because as I mentioned before, Bail Doman is one of these people that the pattern just basically pushes around on the chessboard to have him go where these Taverin need him to go. Pretty much, he's kind of caught in the pulls of the thread of these three powerful Taverin kids. And also, to some degree, Nynaeve and Egwene and Elaine, who are also kind of entangled in all of those Rand, Mat, Perrin's weaves and the pull that they have on everything around them. So Bail Doman is just one of those characters who the pattern just pushes him where he needs to be. So I hope he's a character who gets to do a bit more of his book stuff in this TV show at some point. At least he's there this season, even though he wasn't there last season like he should have been. But at least he's there this season, even if he hardly did anything. But, and then we're back to Surath, and Shamael comes walking in, and Shamael learns from Surath that Turok is dead. And he basically orders Surath to take her and her assistant there and take the Damane, some of the Damane, onto the ships out in the harbor and be ready to gentle a man. So Surath is going to be taking a bunch of Damane, going out to those ships in the harbor, and they're going to channel from there and try to channel and reach out with a weave to shield Rand, and then at Shamael's command, gentle him. Because Shamael is cutting his losses at this point because Lanfear has betrayed him, and he's like, well, what I wanted to do isn't going to happen. Let's just call it a wrap and get rid of this kid, Rand, and I'll just, again, wait for the next turning of the wheel, and hopefully it works out better for me then. So that's kind of where he's headed. And now we get to something really sort of interesting with Mat. Mat is still in his room. His dagger's still on the desk. And again, Donald Finn, I think, is doing a really good job. This is something I've mentioned last week as well. I think the last couple of weeks. He brings a different kind of physicality to the character of Mat. Because he's just a bit more of like subtle physicality into how he acts than Barney Harris does. So it's a bit of a different take on the character. But I think it's going to serve the character of Mat well. Him having this sort of slightly harder little like physical edge to him. Because you see just some of his physicality. I'm saying that word over and over again. But in terms of how he acts, makes it and it just gives it a different, interesting, different taste. And I think for where Mat's character should be going, like the whole martial element of it, I think it'll serve him well as an actor. So what Mat does is, because he realizes the dagger's very useful, but he doesn't want to touch it because of what it'll do to him. He basically gets what looks like a broomstick, knocks, and a cloth, puts the cloth on the floor, knocks the knife onto the floor with the broomstick, and shoves the knife with the broomstick over to the cloth, and then puts the broomstick down, wraps the cloth around the knife handle hilt and the end of the broomstick kind of thing, and then has some twine from somewhere and just ties it all up. And he basically makes a makeshift spear. Now, a couple of things. There's no way in hell that little piece of twine is going to secure that blade. He's going to try to stab something, and it's just going to fall off. But, it's a TV show, so this is the twiniest twine that's ever twined any twine, and it's got that blade like rock solid on the end of that like broom handle or staff or whatever. So he jams the blade into the lock because he's locked in this room, and it burns right through the lock. He opens the door, kills the guard. Pattern Fane is sitting in the hallway. So Pattern Fane thinks he's come out with the dagger in his hand, not realizing that he's got the dagger tied to the end of the stick so he doesn't have to touch it. And then Mat starts attacking the guards, and Pattern Fane just runs away, basically, calling for more guards. So, interesting. Now, I will say this. This better not be the spear that Matt has in the books. This better not be that spear. He still needs to go to Rudian and he needs to get that spear there. So I'm hoping that this is just a kind of foreshadowing that since he kind of just jerry-rigged this thing and he's using it temporarily now, that it's going to then put in his mind taking a spear when one presents itself to him later. Because I really, really would adamantly hate if this is meant to be the spear he's going to have carrying to battle the rest of the story. But again, I can't say that it isn't. So I wouldn't put it past this show doing something like this. But I just really hope not. I hope really this is more just setup and foreshadowing for the proper spear he ends up with in the books. Anyway, we're back to Egwene. We're up on the tower. You know, the Damani are like flinging bolts and stuff down at the White Cloaks, trying to basically indiscriminately. I mean, they don't look like they're trying not to kill their own people at this point, you know. But Egwene is like looking at the destruction she's helping cause, and then she just decides, no more. And she turns away and turns back to Rena. And Rena is like not happy. And one of the other Suldam, like the sort of head Suldam, is basically looking at Rena like, you know, you get your girl in line kind of thing. And Egwene spits out the pacifier, which, thank God, I hate those stupid things. I hate stupid design, those pacifiers. And she basically says no to Rena. And then we cut away. And we have Nynaeve and Elaine. And I think somewhere earlier this, we cut back to Nynaeve and Elaine before this, where Nynaeve is basically torturing Sita, the Suldam that they had captured and collared. She's basically torturing her there and she wants to know where Gwen is. And Nynaeve is being pretty brutal here. And far more than she is in the book. But she does have the one line of dialogue about, like, your mother will wish she never kissed you when you were born. That kind of dialogue is straight from the book. There's a lot more Nynaeve does say that they just leave out. They just give her that one line. And so Sita had basically said, no, Egwene is on the tower. So now we have Nynaeve and Elaine arrive at the base of the tower, and they figure out, okay, well, they got to get up there. And White Cloaks are battling like Shan-Chan all around them. And then an arrow comes out of nowhere and kills the Suldam, kills Sita. And then Nynaeve's bracelet falls off. And they did this here to show you that when someone collared, the Damani dies, the Suldam's bracelet just falls off the Suldam's arm on its own. And vice versa. If the Suldam were to die, or and the collar falls off like the Shan-Chan, the Damani. These basically things detach themselves upon the death of one of them. And another arrow comes out of nowhere and hits Elaine in the leg. And Elaine falls down. And up on top, while this is all going, the White Cloaks outside the city have trebuchets, and they're launching giant rocks and things and hurling them. And a rock smashes into the top of the tower while all this stuff is going on. And then when we cut back up to the top of the tower, Egwene is crawling out from under the rubble. Egwene and Rena seem to be the only two who survived that trebuchet attack. And they're the only two who appear not to be dead or unconscious. And now we're now switching back and forth between everybody here. Boom, 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 because everything's now happening all at once. So, and then we have Matt is running through the streets, and he runs into Perrin and Loyal and them. And they have their reunion. And with Egwene is being tortured by Rena, because Rena is furious, and she's, just Egwene's contorting from the torture. But then Egwene grabs a collar from one of the Damani who died and just jumps up and collars Rena. And then Rena's laughing at it because this isn't going to work on me. But then it expands into the whole chassis thing. And Rena realizes that she's been collared. And Egwene uses the one power. No, and Rena tries to basically punch Egwene and then feels the punch herself, now feeling what a demonic goes through. So Egwene uses the one power and hangs Rena by the collar on this hook on the wall. And Rena is like slowly choking to death. And, Rena's like, even if I die, you're going to feel my death because we're still linked to your collar and my bracelet. And Egwene's just staring at her like, I don't care. And Rena just gets so desperate, she releases the collar from around Egwene and lets the bracelet off. So now she's totally at Egwene's mercy because Egwene's no longer collared, but Rena still is. And Egwene just stands there and watches Rena choke to death, and Rena dies. So Egwene straight up just stone cold murders Rena here in this TV show. Now, this is another scene. I was absolutely shocked at this because Egwene in the books wants to kill Rena, but doesn't give in to that because it would make her kind of evil because that's what villains do. That's what bad guys do. And so she's like, it's an emotional scene with Egwene in the book because she's in her room when she's rescued by Nynaeve, Elaine, and Min, and Sita basically all come into her room. And then Nynaeve frees the collar from Egwene because Nynaeve knows how to open them up. In the book, she's figured it out with the one power. She can just flick it just enough to pop open the collar around the neck or the bracelet. And Rena comes walking in the middle of all this. And because Egwene's no longer collared, Egwene just attacks Rena with that water pitcher that we saw earlier in the season, in the book. And then she's just pummeling her. And then puts the collars Rena and puts the bracelet on. And she wants to kill Rena in this moment, but she doesn't. And Nynaeve is basically telling her you can't do that. And this is an interesting moment in the book because, I'm going to read what's here. Egwene's straightened, brushing her tears away quickly. She's like, I'm not like them. And she almost clawed the bracelet off her wrist and threw it down. I'm not, but I wish I could kill them. And then they deserve it. Min was staring grimly at the two Suldam because this is Sita and Rena are now both collared and their bracelets are hung on the wall, so they can't go anywhere. And Elaine says, Rand would kill someone who did a thing like that, Elaine said. She seemed to be steeling herself. I'm sure he would. And then Nynaeve says something really interesting. This is what I love about Nynaeve in this story. Nynaeve's one of my top 3 favorite characters in this whole series, in the books. And Nynaeve says, perhaps they do, Nynaeve said, and perhaps he would. But men often mistake revenge and killing for justice. They seldom have the stomach for justice. And it's a really good moment. And it's kind of juxtaposing how, Nynaeve views authority and power, being a wisdom, and having the power to decide what happens to people. Growing up as a wisdom and having that power to some degree in her hands. And having to learn on the job firsthand the difference between, revenge and justice, and that there often can be contradictory things. So, but that's what makes this scene in the book really good, is that Egwene proves to be better than Rena, proves to be better than the Shan-Chan in this moment. But not in the TV show. In the TV show, Egwene is stone cold kills her. So, which makes Egwene a very, very, very different character in this TV show now from the books. This is no longer the same person. When you murder someone like that, casually and cold, that changes who you are inside. So I'm hoping this is something that they just don't brush off next season. I'm hoping it's something that they actually are going to incorporate into her dealing with the repercussions of doing that to someone. So we'll see. Let's see. Matt says, I found it strange that Egwene was able to collar Rena at all. A Damani isn't supposed to be able to raise a weapon of any kind against a Sul'dam. Yes, and that's what doesn't make sense in the TV show. In the book, Egwene is able to collar Rena because Egwene's already had her own collar taken off. She's no longer chained as a Damani, thanks to Nynaeve. But here, she absolutely would not be able to pick that, the collar up and chain Rena. She just wouldn't be able to do it because the way that whole system works, it's not possible for her to use, to even touch anything if she even thinks it's a weapon in any way. Like even the water pitcher, she spends, I think, a couple of days it takes her to convince herself in the book before she's able to touch the pitcher, just to even drink a glass of water for herself. She spends days having to convince herself that not only is it not a weapon, she would never use it as a weapon, and she would never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, no matter what, do anything to harm Rena. And she has to convince herself and make herself believe it. And it kind of partially breaks Egwene, in a sense, because she realizes that she does believe it. She has to surrender that completely to the Sul'dam's control. And it's a hard moment for Egwene emotionally in the book. And here in the TV show, even though they spent that whole scene when we first meet Rena and Elaine is first collared and brought into her room, you spend that whole scene showing how Egwene can't touch the water pitcher at all because she's thinking of it as a weapon. And then, plot says, who cares about that? Plot needs this to happen, so this happens anyway in this TV show. Because logic, reason, even though the rules the TV show sets up go out the window when plot needs to happen. So, and this is another example, yes, a big continuity error on the TV show's part. Because, if this was meant to be that Egwene is just so strong-willed that she's able to overcome this contraption, you did a crappy job setting that up. Because there's a big difference between spitting out this sort of pacifier, which doesn't exist in the books, spitting that out and taking it out of her mouth and beating Rena off the head with it. She wouldn't be able to do that. So, but yeah, so I was not a fan of that at all, because that drastically changes who Egwene is as a person on this TV show. And then it kind of dawns on Egwene what she's done, and she drops to her knees, and then Rand just comes strolling in after everything's happened at the most useless moment for the most part. And he sees Egwene there, and they have their reunion. And now Egwene's no longer collared or anything because when Rena dies, the bracelet and Elaine's own collar falls off. And this is no longer the Egwene from the books. So I'm really curious to see where they're going with her character. Because again, this is not a minor change. This is a character defining and in a bad way for a person moment that doesn't happen in the books. But where are we now? Okay, so we're back down. The fighting's going on. The Aiel are doing what the Aiel do. Aviendha, Bane, and Xian are having the time of their life. They're veiled up, and they're just slaughtering Shan-Chan to their heart's content left and right. Because that's what the Aiel do. I mean, now, yes, in the books, there were no Aiel in Falme. The Aiel that crossed the spine of the world, Aviendha, Bane, and Xian included, they're searching for the Kara Karn. They're the Aiel seem to be all making their way towards the Stone of Tyr. So there are no Aiel here in Falme in this finale in the book at all. So, but again, they're here in the TV show. But they're just kind of doing their thing in the background. And Loial has the horn. He wants to get it to Rand, but it's still in this box. And none of them know how to open the box. But Mat does. So Mat realizes, the blade, the Shadow Logoth dagger can open the box, kind of thing. But again, we're bouncing back and forth between everybody all over the place here. And then we're back with Ishamael back on top of the tower. And Ashamal arrives. He sees Rand and Egwene, and he knocks Egwene out with the one power, just flings her against the wall, and she drops unconscious. And he throws Rand down with the one power, and then sends a signal up. And the Seanchan, the Damane in the boats in the harbor with Surath, tells them, okay, perform your weave. And the Seanchan, the Damane link up, and they send this giant sort of weave all the way off across the harbor and up to the top of the tower, and seize Rand and shield him. And then here's Rand, shielded and on his knees yet again in this TV show. Just like the last episode, he spent most of that episode shielded and on his knees. Here he is, shielded and on his knees again. So, those of you who have read this book and know this whole battle that takes place between basically Rand and Shamiel calling himself Balzaman in the book at this point, they're fighting. The two of them are dueling while all this other stuff is happening. And in this TV show, nope, Rand might as well not even be there. He's just shielded and on his knees, totally useless. And he tells Rand that because he lied, he says, look at what Egwene did. He's pointing, I guess, to Rena. He tells Rand that because of your lies, you drove your friend to become a killer. And your lies and your actions are going to drive all of your friends to become killers. And you're going to turn all of them into us, kind of thing. He's kind of presenting it as. And that's going to be what Rand's going to do to everybody. And then we jump back to Mat and Loyal and everyone there, and they put the chest down where the horn is, and Mat stabs the little box with the dagger at the end of his spear thing, and it burns a hole in it and opens it up, and Mat takes the Horn of Valera out. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take this to Rand at the tower. So Mat takes off running with the horn to get it to Rand. Because, the presumption is, okay, Rand's the Dragon Reborn. Let's get him the horn. He can blow the horn, and the heroes of the horn can come and help us win this whole fight, kind of thing. And he runs off, and then we have Perrin and the rest of them. They're all fighting now. The Aiel again, killing Seanchan. The White Cloaks are there, and Dane Bornhold is there, and Perrin and Dane kind of ending up sort of bumping into each other, kind of fighting on the same side against Seanchan. And, Dane sees him, and he's like, Two Rivers kind of thing. And this is setting up another very significant change from the book. It's coming up in a moment. And Valda is there, of course, and Valda sees Perrin, and Valda, charges at Perrin, and he attacks him. He's got him down. He's about to kill Perrin. Perrin is desperately trying to grab some discarded axe. And again, still hasn't had an axe this whole TV series at this point. And he's trying to grab an axe, but he can't reach it. And then Hopper comes out of the blue and attacks Valda and gets Valda off of Perrin. And as Perrin gets up, I think he takes the axe and gets up, Joffrey Bornhold sees this wolf attacking Valda, and Joffrey just hacks Hopper almost in two, right on Hopper's back, and kills Hopper. And yes, Hopper dies. I'm pretty sure Hopper dies in book 1. But they have Joffrey Bornhold kill him here. And then Perrin just loses his mind. Perrin sees Hopper's spirit kind of go up into the air, fly off, and loses a little wolf vision. And then Perrin just loses it and grabs the axe and just lays that axe into Joffrey Bornhold and just starts hacking the man. And again, Joffrey Bornhold and the White Cloaks show up at Falm. They've been traveling there throughout the second book. They finally show up, and they basically just get caught in the middle of just madness that breaks out from all around them. And he gets him and his people killed because they get caught in the middle of a Damane fighting a couple of Aes Sedai train, or Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine are flinging power bolts around, and the Damane are flinging power bolts back at them in the book. This madness is happening, and Gwen is just making the ground erupt. Because she's kind of loses it in the book and just starts like laying into the Shan-Chan with the one power. And when Nynaeve's just trying to sneak by all this, nothing to do with us. Let's just sneak by. No one's going to notice us. We'll run to the boat. We'll get the hell out of here. But this is when Egwene loses it and just starts laying in with the one power, just exploding the ground, attacking Shan-Chan soldiers. And Joffrey Bornhold and the White Cloaks just get caught in the middle of this and just get themselves killed because they shouldn't have been there. They came to a place they weren't prepared for and got. So, but in the TV show, they have Perrin just, again, straight up kill Joffrey Bornhold right there with an axe in front of everybody, which is very, very different. Because in the books, Dane Bornhold is convinced Perrin killed his father. But Perrin never did. And this is part of Perrin's whole, who he is as a person, that even though this is a crime Perrin isn't guilty of, he'll sacrifice himself if it's going to save the lives of all of his friends. This is something we get to later in the books where he's willing to do this, even though he's not guilty of this crime. But here in the TV show, guilty. He's guilty. He straight up stone cold, kills. Now, deservedly so, in the middle of the battle. Joffrey killed his hopper, so he's killing him back. Hey, Indari. How you doing? Onyx Pages, by the way, great person. Met her at a conference a few years ago. Wonderful channel, wonderful woman. Highly recommend her stuff. And so where was I? So yeah, so very, very different, because having Perrin does what Dane thinks he did in the books, but never did. But here Perrin is. So that, again, that's going to completely change the whole dynamic between this whole Perrin-Dane Bornhold thing that Perrin is going to be dealing with for quite a while in this story. So it basically makes Dane right instead of wrong. So it's it's an odd change to make, to be honest. But again, here we have a Gwen killing someone she doesn't kill in the books because she proves to be the better person. Not in this TV show. Dead. Here's Perrin killing somebody he doesn't kill in the books. And does it in a fit of rage, which completely changes the dynamic again of who Perrin is and what Perrin does, and changes his entire sort of contention that's going to be between him and Dane. So this show made some stark changes to a couple of these characters and things that either happen, and has them doing things in the TV show that they don't do in the books, that have massive repercussions, that don't exist in the books or exist in different ways in the books. So I just don't know where they're going with this, to be honest, to make this kind of a change. So very, very surprised. Hopefully there's an actual game plan for why they've made this change, why they had Egwene kill Rhaena in the TV show, and why they had Perrin kill Joffrey in the TV show. Now, my assumption is there are people who don't like that Dane just believes Perrin did this and refuses to accept that he didn't. And there are people who just don't like that plot line. They think it's kind of dumb. So making Perrin actually do that deed here kind of makes Dane's character and story perhaps more believable. So maybe I can see they're just going with that angle, that they just like this better. But again, you change a character when you have them kill someone that they don't kill in the books. You change the TV version of that person is a very different person. And I really hope this show does not ignore how that would change who these people are. And quite frankly, is going to impact how they'd have to write these characters going forward. Or they could it's just something that happened and never gets brought up again. Who knows? We'll see. But where were we now? Okay, so that's happened. Okay. So Matt arrives. He's almost at the tower. He sees the entrance to the little complex where he can go up into the tower. And there's a whole bunch of Shan-Chan guards there. And it's just Matt. And the Shan-Chan see him and basically attack. Right? They start running towards him. So Matt does what Matt does. Matt just said, screw it, and blows the horn of Valir, which I was so happy, super, super happy, because yes, in the books, everything, all hell is breaking loose around them. And Matt, again, in the books, he's just like, all right, and just blows the horn in the books too. And the Heroes of the Horn show up. And basically, as he's blowing the horn in the TV show, time, everything stops and just, or slows down to like a snail's pace. Everything except for Matt. Matt's still at normal speed, but everyone is like moving like super, super, super slow. So we have Perrin is very slowly hacking Jav from Bornhold to death, kind of thing. And then this sort of mist appears, and the Heroes of the Horn show up. And we see Uno. You know, dead Uno has become a hero of the Horn. So we have Uno's spirit back to fight. And there's what's meant to be Arthur Hawkwing there, and a bunch of other heroes from all these different ages. So they're all in these, basically all these different kinds of fashion and attire and apparel. You have like almost like, whether it's Chinese influence, like the woman, who is a pretty badass fighter, that particular hero of the Horn. She really, they give her the spotlight in some of the fights, and whoever that actress is, she did a really good job in those like quick fight moments she had. But we have the Heroes of the Horn there, and Matt is like looking at them, and sort of Matt has this like moment of realization where he's looking at the horn, he's looking at them, they're all standing there, and Matt says, I remember. And then he's looking at the heroes, and he goes, the Heroes of the Horn. He says, I'm one of you. And then Arthur Hawkwing looks at him and says, I have fought by your side times beyond number. Fight with us once more. And then Matt turns around, and he's got his staff, and Matt basically gives a command and shouts in, well, I'm assuming is Manetheren, the old language of Manetheren, because this is something that is happening to Matt in the books. One of the side effects of having that dagger for so long, it's sort of unlocked memories of maybe past lives that he's lived. And he's able to start speaking and understanding some of these old tongues that he never knew before. So this is our first proper There's Book Matt Coffin. For the first time, I think, in this entire TV series, we finally get to see Matt Coffin. And he's got what I hope is a temporary spear and not the spear he's going to be having in this whole TV show. And he leads the Heroes of the Horn. And then time picks back up for everybody. And Matt and the heroes are all battling the Shan Chen there in that sort of walkway towards the, trying to get to the tower. And Dane sees that Perrin killing his father. And Dane tries to attack him, but the White Cloaks are trying to retreat. And they grab Dane, and they're dragging Dane away. And Dane is like cursing Perrin as he's being dragged away. Again, big change, but I think they've done a very good job setting up Dane Bornhold this season. And I guess they wanted to make this change so that Dane is justified in the TV show for some of the things he says and does. And I really like the actor. I thought is a really great casting choice for Dane. And I'm looking forward to seeing him continue into this role, especially if season 3 is meant to be book 4. That means we're going to get a whole bunch of Dane Bornhold and White Cloak stuff in that book. And I'm really looking forward to it because I like the actor playing him a lot. That's one of the things that I really like about the show. He's well cast and generally well written. And he's set up in a way where you like him. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't seem like his father. He doesn't seem like Valda. He seems like more of a guy you could actually get to know. But, you know, how he's going to be from here is cemented in that moment, TV show moment of him seeing Perrin kill his father. And yeah, I do feel like Dane versus Perrin is more plausible this way. In the books, Perrin feels guilt over deaths of some nameless White Cloaks. So yeah, so again, I don't take an issue with the change for making this whole Dane Perrin arc like have more weight and more purpose. I do think it's something that's hopefully they're going to address with Perrin. And yeah, I guess, because he killed some White Cloaks earlier, so I guess this is going to be the main White Cloak death he's going to obsessively guilt over for most of the rest of his story. But we'll see. So again, I'm just curious to see how they're going to change how this dynamic is between these two men, with Perrin, TV show Perrin, actually having done this deed that book Perrin didn't do. So we'll see. We'll see how they handle it. Hopefully. Some of the writing has been very hit and miss. So I just hope their writers are up to the task for this sort of reinterpretation of this sort of dynamic between Perrin and Dane Bornhall going forward. So, let's circle back to Nynaeve and Elaine. When we left them, Elaine had been shot through the leg. She's got an arrow sticking out of her leg. And this is, again, right in the courtyard, I guess on the other side of the tower, not where Matt is. This is another way into the tower from the other side. That's where Nynaeve and them seem to be. And Nynaeve can't channel because she can only channel when she's, like, super angry. And she doesn't really know what to do, and she can't help Elaine. So let's just pretend if someone's got an arrow stuck in their leg, you can just take the end of the arrow and just push it all the way through, and everything will be fine. Because that's what Nynaeve does. She just pushes the arrow through and pulls it out the other end, like it kept going. Now, Elaine would bleed out, I think, in reality, if you did that. But Elaine's like, help me up. And Elaine's up on her feet. And, she's got an arm around Nynaeve's shoulder, but they're going into the tower. Now, Elaine had just had an arrow shot in her leg, had it ripped out of her by Nynaeve, and now she's up on her feet and she's about to climb a whole bunch of stairs to the top of a tower. But when she shouldn't be able to walk at this point. But, this show doesn't really. There are times when this logic, reason, reality just go out the window sometimes in this TV show. It is what it is. Now, will say this. I've been very disappointed in how much agency they've taken away from Nynaeve in these last two episodes. And Elaine's the new main character introduced in season 2. So they're trying to find moments for Elaine to sort of shine and show you why she's here and what she can do and what she brings to the story. So I get all that. I just wish, again, that they were just more skilled at giving Elaine things to do and moments to shine without taking away from Nynaeve. Because in this whole section of the book, Nynaeve steps up and takes charge. And Elaine gets to do things, and Min gets to do things, because yes, Min is here in the books. Min was captured by the Shanchan in the books along with the Egwene, but Min wasn't collared because she doesn't wield the one power or anything. She was just made a servant. But Nynaeve, because she can't channel, Nynaeve is doing what she can, but she's a wisdom. She's used to making the tough calls, making the decisions, being the one who has to make those tough choices to let everyone else do what they're good at. And this is what she's doing in the book. And in these past 2 episodes, Nynaeve has basically just been there. And Elaine has stepped up and taken charge in the TV show. And I just wish they would have found a better way to give Elaine moments to shine without just basically downgrading Nynaeve so significantly the way they have in these last 2 episodes. Because if you think about last season, I mean, Nynaeve is blasting power, healing the whole room, basically somehow sacrificing herself to save Egwene from death, and then suddenly Egwene can save her from death, and all this grand stuff. And they're killing Trollocs left and right in season 1, and Nynaeve is mostly just there. So, again, disappointed, yes. Nynaeve is my second favorite character, I think, in the entire book series, so I am definitely biased. So this is biased to some degree, but I do think this is one of the areas where the show really needs to like tighten up its writing, because you shouldn't have these disparities in how some of these characters act. And there's been just too much of that sometimes, season 1 and here in season 2. Nynaeve shouldn't be almost a non-factor, because there's a lot she brings to the table, even when she can't actually touch the source and help out in a one-power way. She still brings a lot more outside of that, and they just pretty much took all that away from her. So I was just, again, being a Nynaeve fan, as much as I am from the books, I was just disappointed that they felt the need to downplay her so much to play Elaine up. But again, just personal thing with me. But then we're back up on top of the tower, right? Egwene is still kind of lying there. Rand is now is basically shielded on his knees. Shamael is standing there talking to him. And Rand forces himself up to his feet, because the Shamael's like wants him one last time, come on, join me and help me destroy the wheel so we can put an end to this playing out over and over and over and over and over again. And Rand's like, I'll never join you, and I don't believe that I've ever joined you. I refuse to believe that I've never served you, and I never will. And Shamael looks at him with like this disappointment. And then Matt shows up behind the Shamael, sees the Shamael there, and then takes his spear that has the Shadow Logos dagger tied to the end of it and throws it. And now, instead of running up and stabbing a Shamael in the back, he throws it. And of course, so that it could pass right through a Shamael, because it's just a illusion of a Shamael. Shamael is basically Loki here. And it passes through him and stabs Rand in the gut. And Rand falls down and Matt runs over, like apologizing. So I realized when this happened, I was like, well, wait a minute. Are you telling me that this is how Rand gets his wound in his side that doesn't heal all the way? This is how he's going to get this wound in the TV show? Because in the book, Shamael and Rand are they're fighting. They're in a battle. Rand's got his sword. Shamael's got his blade. And they are just duking it out. Swords, power, you name it, in this fight here in Falm. And Rand is pierced in the side by Balsamon, the Shamael. And that burns. It's like this permanent, like, icy burn that will never heal completely. It makes me think of, going back to Excalibur, John Borman's Excalibur film that I mentioned earlier. Sir Lancelot basically ends up stabbing himself with Excalibur when he's betrayed his king, and that's a wound that in the movie, in the film, never fully heals for Lancelot. So even when he finally shows up at the end, he comes to Arthur's aid at the very end there, an older man now. And then you halfway through the fight, you see this crazy sort of monk. And then you realize, oh my God, that's Lancelot. His wound is still there, and it's still sort of bleeding because it's never fully healed, because it was a wound of betrayal, and it's a permanent wound. And this wound that Rand gets from Balsamon and Shamael here is a similar. It's a burn and a wound that he just can, the Aes Sedai, and he just can't completely heal ever. And here in the books, it's it's Matt's dagger. So, and again, Kenneth Branagh, I was not angry till I came to France from Henry V in my head again, watching this moment play out on screen. And then we get Matt cradling the Randed wound, saying, I'm sorry. So now, what happened to Min's vision? Because Min sees Matt standing next to Rand and just stabbing Rand and lowering him down to the ground. And yet here, it's Matt flinging the blade as a spear and goes across the whole tower and stabs Rand. So not really what Min saw exactly. But Shamael steps forward And as Matt's saying, I'm sorry, Rand, I'm sorry. And Ishamael says, I'm sorry too, old friend, as he's looking down at them. And he's preparing to strike Rand and Matt, basically looking to end it and just wait for the next turning of the wheel. And then a wave of power repels them. And then we see Gwen is awake and standing up, and she comes over and she stands in front of Rand and Matt and raises a shield with the one power and proceeds to battle Ishamael. So yes, Rand is still shielded by the Damane out in the ships in the harbor, and now stabbed, lying on the ground, completely useless, hasn't done a damn thing in this whole scene. And Egwene is battling Ishamael and holding off a Forsaken, holding off the most powerful Forsaken. Like, Ishamael is flinging firebolts at her, and they're bouncing off of her shield. Now, this is again another time where this show breaks its own rules. We've spent the past 2 episodes seeing the power level of a Forsaken when it comes to Lanfear. Like how Lanfear just strolled through the foregate, just destroying it with ease, without even thinking, almost like bored, and just flinging the Amerlin seat aside, like batting a gnat, and then just doing the same, like opening a waygate and just flinging Moiraine. Pretty experienced, powerful Aes. These are experienced, powerful Aes Sedai. And she just swats them away like a bug. And so, like, I get Egwene is powerful, but where in the world could she all of a sudden go toe-to-toe with Ishamael, and who is the most powerful of the Forsaken? And he's, like, flinging bolts at her, and she's like, with the shield, just holding him off. And again, you'd think he'd just walk up to her and punch her in the face or something. But no, he's just standing there. He has one tactic, and that's all he's doing. And then Perrin shows up out of nowhere with just a regular, ordinary shield he picked up from some dead soldier, and deflects a power bolt from a Forsaken with his little regular shield. It just like bounces off of it. Like, no, I'm sorry, that shield would have shattered into a million pieces, like melted Perrin's arm and flung Perrin off the top of the tower. Because it's just an ordinary little shield. And it's just, I'm watching this wondering, like, what in the world is this showrunner thinking sometimes with some of this stuff? How did not one person in the writer's room read that scene and look up and say, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There's no way we can do this. This is laughable. But nope. It's the team. It's teamwork, people. Well, not Rand, of course. Rand is totally useless, totally worthless. You could take Rand out of this entire TV series and nothing really would be different. Nothing would be different at all. I mean, did the man do a damn thing all season? Other than just use the one power to kill Turok. And just, which I will never just not laugh my ass off. And just at the absurdity of doing that to Turok. I mean, again, taking that poor actor's like whole fight scene away from him and having that happen to him. But Rand hasn't done anything this entire season. Nothing. Except get himself shielded and put on his knees. I mean, he's the most useless, most powerful character I've ever seen in a fantasy story in my entire life. Now, here's what's happening in the book. Okay? All hell's breaking loose because Ingtar, Hurin, Matt, Perrin, and Rand, they figure out, Matt knows, okay, the dagger's in that building right there. I feel it. I know it's there. The horn's probably there. So they sneak around, climb over the wall into this back garden, and they kill a Shanshan guard there. And they come into the whole building. And Matt's leading them to where he knows the dagger is. And this is, like I said, they run into the room, and there's the dagger and the horn sitting on this table. And this is when I said earlier, Matt runs over and grabs them both, and he's got the dagger. It's like, I got it! Like, super happy. And Perrin's like, quiet, man, kind of thing. And then Hylo Turok and his guards show up. Like, they were waiting, hiding behind these sort of, like, barriers, just waiting for them so he could see who's doing this stuff. And he's like, looks at Rand, it's like, you're not what I was expecting. And the Ingtar and Matt and Perrin and Euron start fighting with the Shan-Chan guards, the soldiers. And then they take that fight out into the hall, and it's just Rand and Turok. And then they have their whole sword fight in this room where Rand almost comes close to dying multiple times until he finally makes just the right move and takes Turok out. And then Turok's sort of little servants kill themselves, because that's what they do. They go into the afterlife with their master. And we saw that in the TV show, in this episode. And all this fighting's going on. And they're basically fighting their way back out into the street. While that's going on, this is while Nynaeve and Elaine and Min have Sita chained and like collared, and they're dressed as Damani and Suldam, and they just stroll into what's known as the kennels here in the TV show, the Damani building. They just stroll in, following Min's lead, and Min takes them right to Egwene's room, where they rescue Egwene. They uncollar Egwene, they put basically Sita, they take the bracelet and put it on the peg, so Sita's stuck in that room, collared. And this is when Rena walks in, and all that stuff I mentioned earlier happens. They leave Rena there, hung the chain hung on the peg, so both of them are stuck in that room, hoping whatever Damani or Suldam finds them won't just kill them, to keep the secret that the Suldam actually can channel as well, and that their whole Suldam thing is really a lie, and they've kind of kept that hidden. But and then they go out, and then they're outside figuring, okay, we got to get around all this craziness and get to the harbor to get to Bail Doman, where he's waiting for us. And that's when Egwene sees some of the others, Damani, Suldam, and then she just loses it and just starts flinging the one power, and which just gets everyone caught in the middle, and just craziness on all sides. And Matt is stuck in the middle of all this, blows the horn, the Heroes of the Horn arrive, and then this whole fight ensues between Ishamael. Balsamon shows up, and it's Rand and Ishamael facing off in the book, just the two of them. And then it's the Heroes of the Horn and Matt and Perrin and Loyal against all the Shan-Chan on the other side. And Rand kind of has this weird sort of like distorted vision where Rand can see everything happening all at the same time. So while Rand is fighting Ishamael one-on-one, Rand can almost Rand feels like he's above everything, and he's seeing like his friends and the heroes over here fighting the Shan-Chan, and he's seeing everything that's happening everywhere. And they all see Rand and Ishamael's fight is sort of being projected in the sky. Like if you're watching these live streams each week, I've mentioned the Moon Knight episode where you see the two gods sort of battling it out in the Egyptian sky. And that's what everyone in that whole area sees. They see Rand and they see Balsamon like in a sword and magic fight. And when Matt had blown the horn and the heroes show up, led by Arthur Hawkwing says, we came at the horn's call, but we follow the dragon's banner. Where's your banner? He looks at Rand. Where's your dragon banner? And Rand has been carrying a loose Theron Telemon's banner dragon from thousands of years ago in a bag that was given to him by Moiraine, I think. He's been lugging this thing around with him all this time. And he finally takes it out, and Perrin goes and grabs like a sapling and ties the banner. And Perrin is like the standard holder. And they go into battle. Rand at the forefront, Arthur Hawkwing at his side, Perrin with the dragon, Lews Theron's dragon banner blowing in the wind, and the whole Heroes of the Horn going against the Shan-Chan. And as that fight ensues, that's when Rand and Ishamael end up facing off each other, separate from everybody. So as they're fighting, as Rand gets the upper hand, the Heroes of the Horn are getting the upper hand against the Shan-Chan. And when Ishamael's pushing back and getting the upper hand, and Rand is being forced back, the Heroes of the Horn are being driven back, and the Shan-Chan are getting the upper hand. And Rand starts to realize that both battles are linked, and the fate of one is going to be the fate of the other. So he realizes it's not just his own life at stake here against the Shamael. It's all of his friends and all the heroes. All their lives are in his hands. So he has to win this fight. And we get this whole battle play out between them and the tactics Rand uses and everything that he's learned from Lan, because in the books, they make a point to let us know Lan and Rand, every moment they've had together, they are training. Lan is putting Rand through his paces, just making sword fighting as instinctual as possible, teaching him the different sword forms, what to use, when to use it, why you use it, against which kind of opponent you use it. And all that stuff Rand is employing here. He employs in his fight against Turok and here in his fight against Balzaman. And it's a quick fight in the book between the two of them, because one of them is dying at this point. And luckily, obviously Rand wins that fight. But Rand is pierced in the side, like I said, with that wound that he never heals properly. And then he kills Balzaman. And but again, it's linked to this whole battle, and there's none of that in this book, in this TV show, none of that, because Rand does nothing the whole time until, Ishamael is basically still throwing strikes, not understanding, why am I not winning? I'm a chosen. I'm more powerful than all these people put together. Who the hell is writing my script for me? And then Moiraine, we come back to Moiraine, and she's on the beach with Lan, and Seanchan soldiers show up to attack. Now, not from Falme, from the complete opposite direction. Where the hell they came from, why the hell they were way out in the middle of nowhere, no idea. Just works better logistically for the way they want the scene to play out. And thank you, Seanchan soldiers, for approaching Lan one at a time, so it makes them a lot easier to kill you. Because, if you all rushed him 20 at the same time, he wouldn't have been able to save both him and Moiraine. Moiraine would have had to stop attacking the Damani on the ships and use their powers to help defend Lan. But no, they conveniently come up one at a time, and he's picking them off. And there's a Seanchan archer on the top of this cliff who shoots an arrow. And cool scene, Lan snatches the arrow out of the air and stabs the Seanchan soldier with it. And then the archer thinks about it. It's like, yeah, I'll shoot one more arrow, and shoots one more arrow, and Lan snatches that out of the air. And then the archer, I guess he must be a union worker, and he hears the lunch bell whistle go off. Oh, lunchtime. And he just leaves. Yeah, the archer just stops firing arrows and just goes away. Just no reason. It's like, they just wanted that one cool moment of Lan snatching an arrow out of the sky. So they had an archer just show up for like 30 seconds and then just get tired and go away. Like, it's like this. You can't have this kind of stupidity happening. And this has been a really good scene overall, all throughout this episode of Moiraine and Lan. And then this is what they do with it. But hey, at least we get a water fighting, because most of the season the waters have been sitting around having a picnic and gossiping. So it's nice to see a water actually get to be a water again in this TV show, something that's been missing for almost the entire season. But then Moiraine goes to town with the One Power, and she's going to start destroying these ships. And Lan was like arguing with her. It's like, how do you know who's on those ships? How do you know it's Damani? How do you know they're not just innocent people? And she's like, other than the weave going from the ship to the towers, obviously, Rand's up there. They have to be using this against him. But she says a very interesting thing to Lan here, which I think was well done in the show. And she's like, because he's like, what if there's just innocent people on those ships and you're just killing innocent people? And Moiraine says, I will let 1,000 innocent people die if there's even a chance, or he, meaning Rand, will live. And she says, that's what it means to support him. You do understand that. It's like everyone is sacrificable for Rand. And time to get that through your head. And he realizes, okay, and he nods. And then this is when the Seanchan attack, and then he kills them one by one. So now Egwene, back to the tower. Egwene is kind of tiring. Perrin is helping her, but she's like somehow like tiring, but not tiring enough. Shamael still can't break through her shield. Again, why he's not picking up like chunks of boulders around and just flinging it at them, I don't know. Why isn't he bum rushing them? I don't know. It's like, hey, maybe this thing I've tried 3,500 times will work the 3,501st time. But no. So Moiraine destroys the ships. The shield drops off of Rand. And Ishamael just stops. And just stands there. And Rand gets up, takes his sword, walks over to Ishamael, and just runs him through with the sword. And Ishamael just stands there and takes it. And then the sword gets burning hot and starts melting. Burns a heron brand into Rand's palm, which should be his second one. I believe this was, he had a heron branded into his palm in book 1, I think. And this might be, it's meant to be his second heron brand, but I think in the TV show it's his first. Yeah, I had the impression here that Rand getting stabbed was the Ishamael's plan. Yeah, that's what I think. For the TV show, Rand gets stabbed by that dagger. It'll start corrupting Rand the way it was corrupting Mat. And it didn't, but, no. Now, Rand should be dead, Dragon Reborn or not. I think that dagger would probably kill even Rand, because it's that deadly and that dangerous. Mat, just for whatever reason, this turning of the wheels seems to be the only one who can handle that dagger outside of Padan Fain, because Padan Fain is basically the inhabitant of that spirit that's sort of infesting that blade as well. But yeah, I think that was mainly the plan. Like, Rand will get stabbed by Mat, by the Shadow Logoth dagger, and that'll start corrupting Rand, and Rand will come to his senses from Ishamael's point of view and help Ishamael destroy the wheel and everything. And yes, it seems like it probably is against the Three Oaths. Now, Moiraine can use the power like that to kill, to defend her own life. I don't know technically if the Three Oaths would let her just kill thousands of people on a bunch of ships, even if a few of them are channeling. There's a whole bunch of just crewmen, just sailors. Like some dude whose job is to just sweep and mop the floor on that boat. And he's dead now. So, yeah, so the show, again, gets very sketchy with how these oaths apply and how they really work. And when the plot needs them to not violate the oaths, they don't violate the oath. But this was, so all Rand did this entire season was get shielded and sit around on his knees when he wasn't humping Lanfear. And then just walk 5 feet and stab Ishamael. And Ishamael dies. Yeah, Ishamael drops down to his knees, falls onto his back. He's looking up, sees a couple of seagulls. And he says something like, "It's beautiful." Let me see, where is that? Did I write it down? Yeah, he's like, "It's beautiful. Do you see it, Luz?" And Rand's looking down at him. He says, "What do you see?" And Ishamael says, "Nothing. Nothing at all." And then turns to dust and blows away. And Rand's looking down at the empty spot with tears in his eyes. Like, I don't know why TV show Rand would have tears in his eyes for Ishamael, TV show Ishamael. Now, I took that to sort of mean that this is an indication that Rand is starting to realize this past life connection he's had with some of these people, with Lanfear, with Ishamael. So I think it's the emotion of the moment is kind of coming through, where it's giving you the impression that Rand is maybe starting to remember stuff, though he may not want to or whatever. That's kind of the way I looked at it. But he could have also been looking down and had tears because that would have been me if he had been victorious. I don't know. But by the way, just before this, well, again, Ishamael's flinging bolts at Egwene's shield. Elaine shows up, Nynaeve shows up, and they just kind of walk around all this. And right, I'm pretty sure that stuff's still going on when they get up there. And Egwene kneels down, and Rand looks up. He's like, "Who are you?" And she just introduces herself as Elaine. And she's healing the wound as much as she can from Mat's dagger. So Rand's able to stand up. So, and then this is when Ishamael just gives up. And then Rand just walks over and stabs him. Oh, man. And then we get to the dumbest, the single dumbest moment of this entire TV series so far. Moiraine and Lan are looking on the beach, right? They're looking at the tower. And Moiraine says, above the watchers shall the dragon be proclaimed, bannered across the sky in fire. So now, in the book, that prophecy was fulfilled because everyone watched Rand battling Balzaman with the dragon banner behind him in the sky. Everyone in Falm saw it. Everyone outside of Falm saw it. Everyone in Tommen's Head saw it. Most of the Almoth Plain, that whole like little pocket of the continent, all witnessed this. Okay? Nobody in this TV show witnessed this because this was on top of a roof that no one could see. But Rand kind of walks over to the edge and stands on the parapet, like the battlement there, and he's looking down at the street. And Moiraine uses the one power and sucks up all this energy, this fire. Even one power comes out of the ocean for some weird reason and joins it. And she creates a fire, a dragon out of fire that comes up around the tower and then perches on the top of the tower above Rand, and it roars. And then everyone in this town is looking up and they see Rand standing there and they see the dragon, the fire dragon thing. And they're all going, the dragon reborn, yay. Now, I think in reality, people would be terrified out of their minds and they would be running as far away as possible to get the hell away from the actual dragon reborn. Especially if he's got a literal dragon made out of fire with him. They don't know that Rand didn't create that dragon. For all they know, that's his dragon. And why wouldn't... If I saw some magic dude sitting on the top of a tower with a dragon made out of fire roaring down at me, I wouldn't be going, yay! I'd be going, let's get the hell out of here. I'd be getting as far away from that spot as I could get. But they were all cheering, and, you know, Loial is looking up, and he's got this smile on his face, and we see the Aiel, Avienda Bainchia, they take their masks down, and Avienda looks up, and she's like, Karakarn, you know? Which, now, the Dragon Reborn and the Karakarn kind of, are they the same thing? Maybe they're the same thing. Maybe they're not the same thing. Maybe the Karakarn is just the Aiel's name for what turns out to be the dragon. But each of these sort of peoples, each of these different cultures have their own sort of cosmic hero, in a sense. The general one for the world is the Dragon Reborn. But the Sea Folk have a different one, and to the Aiel, it's the Karakarn. And they're not necessarily the same person. This go around, they all end up generally being Rand, I think. But I don't know that the Aiel would consider the Karakarn the Dragon Reborn. In their eyes, if he's the Karakarn, he's the Karakarn. They don't give a crap about the Dragon Reborn or what anyone else thinks he is. So he's just the... to them, he's the Karakarn. So him proving himself to be the Karakarn hasn't happened yet. There's a whole thing that's very specific to the Aiel culture that it deals with the Karakarn and how one is revealed to be the Karakarn. That's what next season should be about, if next season is indeed going to be book 4, as the showrunner has been saying. So Karakarn, no, Avienda wouldn't think that, because the Karakarn is a very specific thing and a very specific meaning and a very specific way it's revealed to her people. So, but again, this is the TV show, shortcuts for everything. Let's just, they want to do the Karakarn establishment early. But we'll see. So I'm not a fan of that personally, because the Aiel are just, in terms of the cultural thing in the book, the Aiel are my absolute favorite thing in the entire Wheel of Time. Again, Irish and Scottish, and the Aiel are meant to be the Irish and Scottish Celtic people of the Wheel of Time world. So yeah, I'm going to have an affinity to that culture and characters in this story. Because, that's my people in general, even though in the Aiel, in the book, they take cultural aspects from all sorts of different places, like Apache and Zulu, and even some Japanese stuff, and it's all kind of melded together. But in terms of who they are, like ethnically as a people, they're meant to be like early Irish, early Scottish people. which is hence the red hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, green eyes, the light skin underneath and everything. But we'll see. Hello, Silvana. And let's see. Matt, should we wonder how Moiraine knew from a mile up the beach how the fight on top of the tower was going and that Rand had won? Yeah, I don't know. How does she know anyone's even alive at the top of that tower at this point? She has no idea. But again, it's just, well, that's what the show wants, so that's what the show's going to do. It's just... It would have been a bit more... Well, no, not even. I was about to say it would have been a bit more believable if Moiraine was there on top of the tower, helping fend off Ishamael. But we already saw how Lanfear just, like, slapped Moiraine around with ease. So Moiraine wouldn't have been... Moiraine couldn't do what they had to go and do in this episode with her shield. But, yeah, so there's no way Moiraine would have any idea. Moiraine can make all the guesses she wants, but she has no idea what the hell's happening. How does she even know Rand's even alive at that point? And if he's not facing her direction when he stands on the edge of to look down on the people, how she wouldn't even know he's there still. And then, of course, Perrin and Matt and Elaine and Nynaeve and Egwene join Rand. So they're all standing there as sort of heroes together. And the heroes of the Horn, by the way, dissipate at this point. They've evaporated and gone back. It was cool to see Uno become a hero of the Horn. That's what I expected, because the actor was listed in the cast for season 8, so it made sense that he'd come back as a hero of the Horn. I'm guessing that was supposed to be Brigitte as one of the members. Very odd that they did nothing with her, really. So I was a bit surprised at that. That I would have thought that Brigitte would have a bit more of a presence in this episode, since she's, spoiler alert for those who haven't read the books, Brigitte is going to come into play in the story a lot more going forward. Throughout the season, they've been in this sort of dream place, this Telerian Rod, in the books. It's sort of a dream world you can kind of enter. And this is something that Egwene, Elaine, and Nynaeve are going to learn how to do, and something they're going to use to their advantage going forward. And Brigitte, a lot of people, it's just anyone could just find themselves in Telerian Rod while they're sleeping and dreaming without even realizing it. People kind of pop in and out of that all the time. But Brigitte is one of these heroes of the Horn that can go there when she wants. So she starts actually interacting with Elaine and Egwene and Nynaeve in Telerian Rod. So I was very surprised that they didn't have like Brigitte kind of showcase her in this season finale. So it was a bit odd, because there was what I assumed was Brigitte, because there was a woman with a bow and arrow. So presumably it was her. I can't remember if they named her or not. But it was just really, really surprising that they just did nothing with her to make her kind of stand out, since she's going to be someone who is a proactive character in the story going forward pretty soon. Okay, but anyway, they're all standing up and everyone's cheering them, and it makes me wonder how long does that go on? Because I couldn't help but think, I always think of Dr. Evil when him and his henchmen, they're all laughing, and normally the scene cuts away, but the scene stays on them and their laughter just slowly, uncomfortably dies out. So I just kind of started imagining that whole scene just kind of slowly, uncomfortably, kind of like everyone just starting to go about their day, like getting brooms out to start sweeping up the mess everyone made. But we get one final scene to close out season 2, and this scene I actually really loved. We're back with Lanfear, and Lanfear goes into Ishamael's room because she wants to retrieve those the Quendiar seals, those big Quendiar discs. Because like she said, her plan was to grab those and give them to Bail Doman for Bail Doman to dump in the ocean. And when she goes in the room, she finds all of them broken. And we get to meet our next member of the Forsaken. And I don't know the actress playing her, and not how I pictured her at all. But I really loved this choice for Moghedien, or Moghedien. I'm not sure how the hell they're pronouncing it in the TV show. I say Moghedien. That's how I've always said it. Whether my pronunciation is right, I'm not really sure, but that's how I've been pronouncing it for decades. So that's just ingrained in my head. But she's sitting there, this crazy little psychopath, Moghedien, and she's like traps Lanfear in a web. She basically traps her, has her caught in this power web surrounding her, and she's kind of squeezing it in on Lanfear a little bit. She even gives Lanfear a little wound. And, you know, she's kind of taunting Lanfear, and you can see that Moghedien is straight up like bonkers. And just this like sort of delicious, diabolical craziness to her. And because she's so short, she's so tiny, it just adds this element to her. Because, you know, Lanfear is much taller and more staid, and Moghedien's this sort of little, almost like almost like impish, elfish sort of, but like deviously crazy kind of person. And she's talking to Lanfear, and she's like, "This is a warning. When I strike, I don't miss. Stay away from him, Lanfear. He's ours now, all five of them. All five of them are. Softly from the shadows." And then she vanishes into a shadow. And then the Lanfear's freed, and the candles come back on. And Lanfear's like kind of shaken there. And she's like, she's just looking around. She goes, "Light help you, Rand al'Thor." And and then the show ends. The season ends. So all the other Forsaken are now freed. And so they're all going to start showing up going forward. And I'm really looking forward to seeing which particular ones they've chosen to have in the TV show. And I'm really looking forward to Moghedien. Moghedien is so... this is a Forsaken you come to really despise in the books. I mean, Moghedien is so like I said, deliciously evil in the books. And I like this portrayal of her. What little we got, I really enjoy this interpretation of her. And I think she's going to be one of the highlights of next season. And I'm really looking forward to Nynaeve, let's just say Nynaeve's first run-in with Moghedien. And that whole dynamic between these two women going forward from there. It's gonna be really good. So, and again, this is what frustrates me about this TV show, because they have things like this that I think are really, really good and show so much promise, but then they do just the dumbest things like they've done in this episode. Now, again, Rand just being shielded and on his knees and useless, while Egwene is mostly, protecting everyone from Ishamael. And then Ishamael just giving up and being stabbed to death by Rand. Like Book One's finale was not anywhere remotely present in the season one finale. And the same now with Book Two. How Book Two goes down is not even remotely in this season 1-2 finale. And again, it's Min is there, and Min is the one who finds Rand, an unconscious Rand, after this battle's over. She's like roaming the streets looking to find Rand, and she finds him lying there in the street unconscious, and she basically drags him into a building nearby and leaves him in the hallway there, finds a room with a bed that does a bed in it, and drags him all the way up and manages to get him into a bed while he's unconscious, and she's sort of cradling him. And I mentioned this last week, and Gwen pops her head in and sees them, and it's a bit startled. And Gwen is like, he's too dangerous. You can't be with him. And Min is like, you discarded him. What do you care if I pick him up? Kind of this moment. And then, like I said, it's an important moment for Egwene in the books to start accepting that this future that life she was always expecting to have with Rand, it just isn't going to be. And that it's not her place to decide what Rand does in that sort of realm anymore. And then after Egwene leaves, Lanfear shows up and basically introduces herself to Min and says, I'll let you keep him. He's mine, but I'll let you watch over him for now until I'm ready, and I'll come back for him. And again, Min was just done dirty in this season because she was just she was used as a vehicle just to get Matt somewhere and then dumped. And, Min's probably my third favorite character in this entire book series. So to see my third favorite character be just discarded and almost mainly just the whole story in this book just taken away from her, and is just very disappointing. And, Min needs to start being in this TV show, and especially going forward. Like, starting with next season, Min needs to be like a permanent fixture on this show. And it's in the book, when Rand finally wakes up, they're outside of the town now, and they're on this sort of hill, and the dragon banner is there on this proper staff, like blowing in the wind. This is the camp of the Dragon Reborn, and Min is with him when she wakes up. And Varen Sedai has left, as have Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egwene. They've all gone back to the White Tower. And Moiraine shows up. So it's Moiraine and Lan are now back with Rand at the end, the last chapter of the book. And Rand is, and Moiraine is like, time for you to make a decision, Rand. I know you don't want to accept that you're the Dragon Reborn, but it's time for you to decide. And the book ends with Rand finally making that decision at the end. And let's see here. And we have Uno, by the way, because Uno is alive in the books. He did not get killed in the books. He's alive here, and he's here in this scene. And Ingtar is dead, but Uno and Missima are like, basically, we're pledging our service to you. And Rand is like, no, you're Valdara, man. You're Agelmar's men. And they're like, at this point, it's like, all bets are off. You're the Dragon Reborn. All oaths of fealty to anyone are put aside when the dragon comes. So they both pledge themselves. They kneel down and point their sword hilts towards him and swear themselves to the dragon. Because it is said, the one-eyed man said carefully, that when the dragon is reborn, he will break all oaths, shatter all ties. Nothing holds us now. We would give our oaths to you. He drew his sword and laid it before him, hilt toward Rand, and the rest of the Shinarans did the same. You battled the Dark One, Missima said. Missima, who hated him. Missima, who looked at him as if seeing a vision of light. I saw you, Lord Dragon, I saw. He's like, I am your man to the death, and his eyes shone with dark fervor. Because, Missima goes on an interesting journey in these books. And then Moiraine, you must choose, Rand, Moiraine said. The world will be broken whether you break it or not. Tarmangayden will come, and that alone will tear the world apart. Will you try to hide from what you are and leave the world to face the last battle undefended? Choose. They were all watching him, all waiting. Death is lighter than a feather. Duty heavier than a mountain. He made his decision, and that's how the second book ends. And now you're like, okay, I got to read book 3. I want to know what did he decide to do. And book 3, The Dragon Reborn, is the repercussions of Rand making a decision, making a choice. And I don't know that we're getting The Dragon Reborn in this TV show. I don't know if we're getting book 3 at all, because if season 3 is going to be book 4, there was the only thing we got from book 3 in this season was Perrin rescuing an Aiel from a cage. And we had the introduction of Aviendha Bane and Chiad. And that was about it out of book 3. And there's nowhere to fit the rest of book 3 in this TV show. If season 3 is going to be Rand going into the desert. It's going to be the Shadow Rising, book 4. So I'm hoping they do find a way to fit, because I love book 3, The Dragon Reborn. That third book is probably in my top 3 favorite books in the entire series. I know I'm in the minority in that camp. A lot of people just just kind of put book 3 down much lower, because of book 4 is a tremendous book, and book 3 kind of gets overlooked because it comes in between the Great Hunt and the Shadow Rising. But personally, I love book 3, because you have some like Arthurian legend stuff in book 3, the whole sword in the stone kind of sort of thing, with the sword that isn't a sword, and the stone of Tyr and everything. So I'm a big fan of Arthurian stuff. So there's a lot of that sort of imagery in that third book. But what's really interesting is Rand, the book ends here with Rand makes his decision. And throughout book 3, Rand is moving toward prophecy. In book 3, he's basically decides, okay, time for me to prove if I'm really the dragon. If the stone of Tyr, that unconquerable stone, can be conquered by me, because that's one of the big dragon prophecies, then I will believe once and for all that I really am the dragon. So, and the moment Rand makes that decision and starts making a beeline towards Tyr in that third book, the effects of him being a Ta'veren just start expounding, just exponentially, more and more and more. And just things just start going crazy around him, because he's pulling on the pattern so fiercely once he's moving deliberately towards prophecy, that he's just dragging people's lives just out of what their lives would be if he never walked through their town. In book 3, there's a lot of cool, interesting things that happen. And we see the aftermath of a lot of it as Moiraine and Perrin and them are trying to catch up to Rand, because Rand basically takes off in the middle of the night, hoping to leave them behind and just go do this by himself, because this is what Rand is like sometimes in the book. And I don't know if we're going to get how much, or if we're going to get any of that in this TV show, if we're skipping right to book 4 for next season. But overall, I just was so much in this season finale that was so disappointing for me. I mean, they, again, just completely ruined that whole final battle from the book. That whole fight between Rand and, like, Ishamael, calls himself Balzaman in the book. And then while the heroes are battling the Shan-Chan, and it's back and forth, the two battles simultaneously, all of that happening at once, it happening in the sky with everyone seeing it. And they took all of that and turned it into just Rand getting up, taking 6 steps, and just stabbing Ishamael, who does nothing to defend himself. What an absolute, what a disappointment. And again, we get these other moments where it shows what the show really could be if these people, I don't know, I don't want to say maybe if they actually cared about the story in the books, and I don't know if that's legitimate criticism to levy at them. You know, when I see stuff that's from the books that they do really well, like for the most part, Egwene, Elaine, Nynaeve, they got their generally recognizable book story for the most part. Rand did not. Moiraine and Lan did not. Matt did not. Min did not. Even though Matt finally got his book 2 plot at the end of, in this episode, we finally got some proper Matt Cawthon book 2 stuff. But the whole rest of the season was just mostly made up stuff for Matt. So I just wish they would be a bit more accurate, because when they are more accurate to the books, it is the better part of this story. Because, you know, they're following someone who knew how to tell a story. And even with all the quibbles about some of the personality quirks that, yes, Robert Jordan does use 10 million times with certain characters. Like, yes, Egwene folds her arms under her breasts like 25,000 times in the story. And Nynaeve shouldn't have any hair left in her head the amount of times she pulls in her braid. But overall, as a storyteller, you know, the man crafts a fantastic story, a compelling story, a story that moves you and grips you and moves you. And I just wish this TV show could do that. Just do a better job at it. And to me, the standout of the season really was is it Madeline, the actress playing Gwen? She was probably the big standout. And the actress playing Elaine did a great job as well. And of course, Nynaeve, Zoe Robbins is my favorite thing about this TV show as a whole. So yeah, yet another, the things I liked about this season, I really liked a lot more than the things I liked about last season, and the things I disliked this season, I really disliked a lot more than the things I disliked last season. So that was the one consistency in season 2, is the just disparate, like, joy and just disgust I had reacting to this adaptation. And I really hope that they have a chance, if season 3 is going to be book 4, The Shadow Rising, they have an opportunity to kind of get everything back in sync and be more book accurate. Because if everyone is going to be where they need to be, everyone should be pretty much back in place where they're supposed to be at the start of book 4, for the most part, except they won't be in the start of Tier, they'll be somewhere else. But they don't have anyone where they shouldn't be at this point at the end of the season. They can easily move the people to everyone's where they need to be for the book. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But not too bad. 2 hours and 32 minutes. It was 3 hours the last week talking about episode 7. So 2.5 hours this week. But again, a lot to talk about. I just have enjoyed. I've done multiple rereads now of the Great Hunt over this past month and a half. And like I said, just before season 8 aired, I reread the last 15 chapters of the book. So I went into that season finale with the book finale very fresh in my mind. And the downside of revisiting the actual story is it really makes the parts that stray so far from the source material like stand out in bad ways, especially when they're poorly done. Some of the things, like I said, some of the changes they've made, they do a good job on, and there are some things that they've changed that I quite like. But the bulk of the things that they're changing, I'm not a fan of at all, and I don't think help the story. I think they hurt the story because they're sometimes so cheaply or cheesily or just haphazardly done. Like, I mean, I'd say my biggest complaint is, did Ishamael at any point in this entire season feel like a legitimate threat? In any real way. Lanfear certainly did. Lanfear did. She came strolling in and burned the Foregate down without barely even trying. So, but I don't think Ishamael really felt threatening in any real way. And as much as I've enjoyed the actor's sort of portrayal of Ishamael as this man who just longs for nothingness, at some point you have to show why this is the most dangerous and the most feared and the most powerful of the Forsaken. And the show has really just failed at that quite poorly, because he's another one who hasn't, other than chatting, he really hasn't done much. He really hasn't done much. And he should have been able to just pick Gwen up and just fling her off the top of that tower with ease if he wanted to. But yeah, so they're writing him really interesting in some ways, and then just completely wasting him in other ways. And not letting him get to really be dangerous. Like, this man is maniacal and dangerous in the book. And this guy hasn't been able to be that in this TV show, unfortunately. So And I'm curious to see what they're going to do now. Is the actor going to be back? Or, because, again, if you've been paying attention to what he's been saying, the wheel spits you back out. You die and the wheel spits you back out again when it's your turn to come around again. And so it wouldn't be surprising if, like, something Forsaken that is basically a Shamael, but perhaps in a new form going forward now after this. I'm just curious as to, are they going to keep the same actor and just have a Shamael just keep coming back over and over and over again? Or is he going to come back as he sort of in these other bodies, in these other forms throughout the story? Because this is one of the things that happens to the Chosen. They can't die, really. They can't, like, permanently die. Well, I guess technically they can, but only in a very specific way. But so for the most part, when they're sort of killed, they get their spirit is put into a new body and chucked back into the world. So I'm wondering if they're going to be recasting some of these Chosen as we go forward, or if they're just going to keep the same actors and they'll just have him come back as the same person. And, I'm curious to see where this is going to go. So, hard to say. I guess, well, we'll know when we get there, I guess. So if we see far as back, then we'll know, okay, they're not recasting. They're not having them come back in different incarnations, in different forms, in different bodies. They're just going to have the same actors, just keep coming back. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah. So, just to kind of wrap things up, Gwen was fantastic this season. Nynaeve was fantastic except the last 2 episodes. Like I said, they just didn't let her do much of anything. But prior to that, her early season stuff was really great with her. She was like the star of the first half of this season, and Gwen was like the star of the second half of the season. And Elaine is a good casting, really good introduction. Hope we get Gowan and Galad, her brother half brother, showing up next season. Be nice. Elida Sedai hopefully showing up next season. Kind of really important we get her. A bit surprised we didn't circle back to the Amyrlin. They just left that for next season. So that was a bit surprising that we didn't at least get one moment to see whether, the Amyrlin's still lying there in that garden in Carrion. But that's what I've been wondering, Matt. I get the feeling that Leandrin might take over Elida's role, but I thought I heard that they've actually cast the character of Elida. So I think they are going to have her in the show, which I'd be very happy if they do. Elida should have been here already. You should have met Elida in season 1, but they cut out all Camelin stuff. And Elida should have already shown up here in season 2, because she does show up at the White Tower in book 2. But they really need to get rolling on that. Because, I'm pretty sure I read that they've cast Elida. So she should be on the show. So, but though I don't know if that's 100% confirmed, but I've seen plenty of people who, talk about all this stuff that they were talking about that recently. So, but I'm really, and I know why, I don't know, but I'm actually looking forward to season 3 because it's going to be the Shadow Rising. It's going to be book 4. I'm looking forward to, because again, we're going into the Threefold land, so we're going to get to see the Aiel as a people and a culture, and learn a lot more about them, and hopefully meet a lot of really cool characters, and start meeting the wise ones, the wise women, and getting to see a very different take on channeling the one power from Aiel wise woman. And then going to Rudian and all this, what Rand and witnesses there. All that stuff. So many good stuff. I can't wait to reread The Shadow Rising yet again, even though I just read that I reread that again a month and a half ago, because I did reread the first 5 books before season 2 aired. And I'll definitely be at least reading books 3, 4, and 5, and maybe book 6 before season 3 airs. We'll see. But a lot to look forward to. A lot for them to screw up. Now, they were very... they had the Aiel here earlier than they are in the story, so they kept them to like the bare minimum. The Aiel were just there in this finale, but weren't heavily involved. They were just out in fighting, doing what Aiel do. But they weren't involved in how the finale came back, ended up. They didn't impact the end in any real way, which was smart choice, because there were no Aiel in this info in the book. So the fact that they had them to introduce them, but kept them low key and didn't really have them impact the story itself, it was a smart decision. So, and we'll see. I'm still holding out hope we get Gaul, or the Stone Dog, next season. Kind of an important Aiel to pair up with Perrin, because it's Gaul, Bane, and Chiad who kind of stick with Perrin for quite a while in the books. And it's going to be change the dynamic quite a bit if it's just going to be Bane and Chiad and not Gaul with Perrin, because obviously Avienda is not going to be, and that's something that they didn't wrap up in this season either. That when is Avienda going to finish her toe to Perrin? Because Avienda has to go back into Threefold Land. She's going to be going there when Rand goes, pretty much. And it's Bane and Chiad are going to go with Perrin off to do what Perrin's going to be doing next in season 3. So I can't imagine they're going to have Avienda tag along and play Gaul's part there. That would just be dumb. But so I'm just hoping that Gaul does show up. But we'll see. We'll see. At this point, I think I've said all there really is to say about this finale. Again, the fight at the end was just utter dumpster fire and insulting. As a fan of the Wheel of Time books, that's what they did. But the final scene, getting to see little Moghedien, was just it's a nice icing on the cake. Way to end the season. A smart thing to do at the very, very end there, because your last scene is a good one. Even for book readers, it's a really good one. And it's a smart thing to do. You give me that dumpster fire of a fight, but then give me Moghedien at the end to make me happy. So yes, very manipulative show. Well done as well to do that. But so the last thing you remember is Moghedien. That good feeling, that crazy Moghedien has now entered the story and is going to just wreak havoc. I'm looking forward so much to seeing Moghedien and Nynaeve. Just the two of them go at it as we get deeper into the story. So lots of good stuff to come. And again, the show seems to do a good job with Nynaeve and Egwene and Elaine. So I have at least that part of this story to look forward to next season. I hope they do a better job with Rand and Perrin and Mat. There's no way that Rand can't be a major player in next season, because there's no way Rand can go into the desert and do everything he does without him doing. He has to do all that stuff next season. So he has to finally actually start being Rand al'Thor and start getting to do the things in this TV show that he does in the books. There's no way possible to tell that book 4 in this TV show without Rand actually being front and center and the driving force of the story, at least in terms of what's going on in the Threefold Land. So maybe we'll finally get a proper Rand al'Thor next season, because otherwise, I don't know, they're not going to be able to tell the Kara Karin story without the Kara Karin doing Kara Karin stuff. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, Rand was utterly useless and worthless, and you could have taken Rand out of this entire season and nothing would be different. Fuck, Egwene could have picked up the sword and run Ishamael through if that's all it took. So yeah, so that's my Wheel of Time Season 2, Episode 8, what was meant to be sort of review. And I guess I'm going to call it a night. It is Sunday night. It's 10:30 at night. I got to get up and work in the morning, so probably most of you do as well. To anyone in Canada watching this, I think, was it your Thanksgiving around this, right around now? Happy Canadian Thanksgiving, I think, recently. And I think with that, thank you to everyone who stuck out with me through this whole series, through these live streams, and those of you still watching now. I appreciate every minute of your time that you give me and you give my channel. It is deeply appreciated. That anyone takes the time out and to spend some time with me here in a live chat and just watching my videos. I really, really do appreciate it. And my sister is coming to visit for the next couple of weeks. I'm still going to be live streaming, hopefully. I'm next Sunday, same 7:45 Eastern. I'm not sure. I might just do a season 2 post-mortem, just kind of going over the season as a whole and just kind of covering my favorite moments from the whole season and maybe my top 5 favorite moments from the season and my worst moments from the season. I might just kind of do that as a sort of post-mortem wrap-up of season 2 next Sunday. And I doubt it. I would love to get my sister on camera, though I doubt she would appear, because she loves this show because she's never read these books. So to her, this is just a TV show. And she's really enjoying it. So she just comes at it from a completely different place than I do. So she's not judging it against the actual book story. But she probably would have no interest being on camera. So, but probably not going to happen. So I might try to just record an audio-only conversation with her, where the two of us will sit down without the camera and just do an audio-only, sort of like a podcast episode, where you'll at least get to hear a non-book reader's feelings about the show. So maybe I can convince her while she's here for the next 2 weeks to just record an audio conversation with me, and that I can just put on the channel as a just uploaded video. But we'll see. We'll see when that gets here. So next week, sort of a post-mortem. So think of your top 5 scenes and your top 5 worst scenes, if you hopefully can be here, and I'll see you in the live chat next week. And to those of you watching the replay, again, the playlist for this whole season, every one of these live streams, it's got to be coming up to close to 20 hours worth of live streams talking about season 2 so far. So it's up there. So that playlist for the whole thing is down below for anyone interested. Plus my other stuff, Rings of Power, some Malazan review discussion videos, a bunch of stuff down below. Anyway, with that, I will bid all of you a happy Sunday night, and I will see you in a video on my channel at some point during the week, and I will see you next Sunday night in my live chat. And now I have to remember to turn off the stream. Okay, have a good night, everyone.